there. Oh. Hey, how you doing, Panja? Or Pankaj, sorry. Hello, how you doing? Long time no see, right? Got to get the dogs fed, or the dog. Let's see if I guess Sheila, Eddie. Hey, everybody. Hey there. We had a pretty big panel going. I don't know if you all are returning, but we had a large, I think we had like 400 people or something, which was pretty cool. I'm just getting back from the store. I got to feed the dog. In fact, you can see the dog right there. She's looking at me like, where's my food? Yep, there she is. Yeah, good saying hi to you too. I don't know which person it was, but so flattering to have people say hi to me. They recognize me. I was like, this is great. That's the beauty of the internet, right? You can be from any part of the world and you can be around somebody and like, hey, I know that person. Hey there. Hello. Hey, Yemen standing with UK and US. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Gina. But I'm just unpacking some groceries. I got to get to the dog's food, so I apologize for the noise. Got some really good organic apples. Got some organic zucchini, which I love, by the way. Hey, good morning, wherever you may be. Do me a favor, if you're coming in from somewhere outside of the United States, could you please type in the country where you're from, or whatever you want to type in. Middle East is fine, or I know some people, believe it or not, some people from the West Bank, you can't even like somebody's video on TikTok because they'll look in your phone and they'll see who you've liked, and if you like somebody's video like one of mine, they'll take your phone and they'll arrest you. I mean, that's crazy, huh? Palestinians, of course. Not Israelis. They can do whatever the hell they want. So anyway, it's crazy. I'm doing okay. I was feeling pretty bad this morning when I woke up. I was up late. But, okay, I did get some chocolate. I have to admit, I do have a couple of weaknesses. In fact, I have a lot of weaknesses, just food-wise. That's one of them. So here's what I get the dog. It's kind of backwards, but it's like this roll of food. It's like fresh. Yeah, do me if you don't mind, everybody. We had a live going from about 2 p.m. until about about maybe 3 p.m. until 8 o'clock, and that was a long one. So I had to take a break, get the dog and get some food, and so now I'm back. Although I'm I'm in a mess of stuff. I told people 9 o'clock, and I tried to keep my word, but it took a while to get all the stuff. Well, the dog gets meat products. This is the dog's food. I don't eat meat products. The kind of food that I eat, like people say, how do you get your protein? Like, I don't know if you can see this. It's like chickpeas with some sort of rice, and then I add vegetables. And the state I'm from, I'm in it's called the Old Line State. It's called Maryland. And I grew up here, but I've traveled all sorts of places. I lived in Germany when I was in the Army. Of course, as a part of going to the first Gulf War, I went to Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Kuwait. And then I've traveled to Hawaii. I've traveled to, well, that's not another country, but I've been to Costa Rica. I've been to Canada. I'm trying to think where else. Oh, of course, I've been to France, everywhere around Europe, France, Germany, Netherlands. Yeah, by the way, if people ask if it's getting cold, yeah, it's very cold here. In fact, tomorrow, somebody asked me if I would go out and do what's called tabling. I don't know if you know what that is, but that's where you go out and you ever see people that are standing around and you walk by and they hand you flyers or whatever. Because there's a senator that's running for Senate who I like a lot, and even though I've talked about the fact that I think politics is a kind of a rigged game, anytime you can get a better person in, it's better than not, right? So this person's name is Diane Sare, S-A-R-E, and she works with the LaRouche organization, and I'm not a fan of all the things they talk about, but I am a fan of the fact that Diane's a better human being than Kirsten Gillibrand, who's a total sellout. Establishment. And listen, I'm sure Kirsten's nice in terms of talking to her, but and listen, everybody falls prey to the same game, so it's not her fault. But she's as sucked into the game as anybody. Those senators are just, it's a tough game to play. Let's put it that way. But I think as far as the best, you're not going to get anybody perfect, right? No one's going to agree with you on everything. And the thing about the LaRouche organization, I don't like. Hey, everybody. If you don't know what their thing is called peace through development. That's like their big shtick. And there was a guy named Lyndon LaRouche who was alive, who ran for president back in the 70s. And, he's an economist slash big picture thinker. And his idea was is if you got rid of the foreign military stuff, get along with people, and just develop like crazy, everything will be better. And one of the things they want to do is to build what they call a one world highway. They literally want to have bridges, like literally roadways going across the oceans. It seems nuts, but who knows? Anyway, I'm against massive development. I think we've already developed the living shit out of this place, and I think we need to do the opposite. We need to kind of dial it back some, right? But no one asked me for my opinion, so at least not in the political sphere. Did get some strawberries too. They look pretty good. I very rarely get fresh strawberries, especially, but they just, I don't know, just every once in a long while, right? Anyway, I'm going to cut the dog's food up here real quick. I hope she likes, this is not the regular one that she gets. This is a different one. See if she likes it. Ruby, does this smell good? Yep. Okay, she likes it. That's good. Yeah, if you could, we had about 400 people in before I had to pause at 8 o'clock. So if you don't mind, yeah, I will. Yeah, let me see if I can find her. Oh, there's Lepre, right? Yeah, Lepre, can you, I have to tap on her name. So if she writes something in the comments, I can then add her as a mod, Lepre. Thank you for reminding me, Em. So yeah, if you don't mind tapping on my face because it'll create more likes. They've been limiting who they broadcast my lives to, which kind of sucks. So I was getting, 5, 6, 7, 800, sometimes 1,000 people watching, and now I was down to like 100. But hopefully it's more. Anyway, I did promise to people that were waiting in the queue. We had like 9 people waiting to talk, which I felt really badly to have to stop. And if you weren't there before, if you're coming in now but you weren't on earlier, it's going to be recorded. We had some really, really good conversations. I mean, it was good. And we had some people that were pro-Zionist that came in that shared their point of view. And we had one person, unfortunately, that was pro-Zionist that kept jumping in and interrupting, which is something that I see, unfortunately, a lot of people who are pro-Israel or pro-Zionist do more frequently. And I don't like that. I think you should give people a chance to say what they say. And then, listen, if somebody's saying something that you know or you think is factually incorrect, so what? Let them say it, right? It's even better you let them kind of speak themselves into a corner. The thing I struggle with, though, when I let somebody go for like 3 minutes, I can't remember everything they said, and I don't usually keep a pen and paper. So, like somebody said something that I forgot with the last person, and it was important that I respond to that thing, and I just didn't do it. So, anyway, you can't remember everything, right? It's tough when you're managing the comments and trying to listen to somebody and feed the dog. It's hard to do, but you try your best. Anyway, so let me feed the dog while everybody's filtering in here. Yeah, if you don't mind, if you can tap on my head to get the likes up. I know I don't usually talk about that on my lives too much because everyone's always bugging you. Hey, hit the like. So, but if you don't mind, every once in a while I do ask because they're limiting my reach, and so this will pump it up. Anyway, so yeah, what I do is I take this this fresh dog food, I cut it up, I put it in the microwave for like a minute, and then I add in the dog's like kibble, and then I add some water, and it makes a pretty nice little goulash for the dog, and she's very eager to get her hands on it. All right, I just have to grab the kibble. Give me 1 second. All right. So what we did last time was we had a bunch of people come up on the panel. So if you're one of the folks that was waiting, please come up. And yeah, Lepre, if you want me to make you into a model, there she was right there. Hold on. Wait a second. Was it pinned? Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, I missed the message. I just missed it. There she is. Okay, great. Or he, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a she. Okay, great. I'm going to make Lepre a mod. Here we go. Add moderator. And I'm going to give you the full privileges so you can either mute or boot people, whichever way. Somebody's asking how am I feeling better? A little bit, For those of you who don't know, I have Gulf War problems, and it is really kicking my ass. I mean, like, bad. So who knows? Like I say, best we can do is just put one foot in front of the other and try to enjoy each moment, right? You never know how many moments you're going to have. And I kind of feel like, I don't mean to be a pessimist, but I really feel like, I'm on the short end of the curve right now, unfortunately. But, I've had a great life, so if it does happen soon, I did not get a bad deal. But it is kind of hard to come to grips with your mortality, right? It's a very uncomfortable subject for most, but it really shouldn't be, right? it's kind of good for the environment, right? To not have 8 billion of us floating around here. It's funny because when I talk about population, people always say, well, hey, if you think it's too big, why don't you volunteer and start by yourself? And so I think that's actually a fair point. So maybe I will be able to oblige, but I hope not soon, right? Well, somebody keeps bothering me. People keep bugging me to write a book, so maybe I'll write a book, and that way some of my wild thoughts will be at least recorded. But at least you have some of these videos, right? I mean, I've been putting them just so you know if you want to watch some of this stuff. We've had some really good lives with great conversations, different subjects, just all across the board. They're now being uploaded to YouTube and Rumble immediately after I finish. Now, what's going to happen in the near future once I get my act together? I have a Patreon page, and there's going to be different tiers. So I think the one for $5, you'll get like early access to these live videos. So if you miss something that night, you'll get it the same night or same afternoon. And then 3 days later, I'll put it on YouTube and Rumble, something like that. And there'll be other tiers. So I'm going to be doing more extensive content with people, like interviews, podcasts. You'll get that stuff earlier. I'll probably do some lives only for my subscribers at some point. That's coming. And because eventually I got to find a way to survive, right? Everyone, hopefully here you have work or you have savings or whatever. And it's a little unnerving, especially financial stress sucks, right? I mean, I've done well my whole life, but I've kind of been living off my savings for some time, and it's kind of dwindling. And that's a bad feeling, right? You start to feel that stressful feeling like I got to make some money. So, and my bills, I keep them really minimal. I mean, I don't travel. I don't buy fancy shit. I think that's just not what makes me happy anymore. I think at one point I was sort of in, got to make a lot of money, right? That's what you're told to do. And then you realize after time, it's kind of a bullshit deal, right? Interactive Brian, write it down and definitely come back. Would love to hear from you. Sleep well. Yeah, Brian, I think, is over in maybe Indonesia or something like that. I know he's in the Far East. So, by the way, I normally do my lives, for those of you who are filtering in here, I do them Monday, Wednesday, Friday, typically from 8 p.m. Eastern Time to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Unfortunately, this last Friday, I felt horrible, so I couldn't do it. And then Saturday, I was at the D.C. March yesterday, and that's why I didn't do my regular one. I did start a live when I got there around 1 p.m., but the service sucked, so I couldn't keep it going. But the normal schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And then on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I go from 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And that lets people from places like where Brian is tune in without having to stay up too late. Because people were having to stay up to start at 4 in the morning. And, who knows, that's too late. So it's a little warm in here. Let me just drop this. It's funny what people say to you in the comments. Like, I wear this... it's like one of these cover-ups, and it had a lot of cat hair. And somebody said, "Dude, wash your fucking clothing." It's like, that's probably a fair criticism. But I do wash it once in a while. It's just that, anything in life. Okay, let me chop this up for the dog. Thank you for posting the schedule, Em. And yeah, hopefully everybody's gonna be cool. So if you want to come up as a guest, if you were on during the last, it was like 5 hours we were going for, which is, that's a marathon. The longer one that I've done, we went from 12 noon one time when Quinn, the Eskimo, was on. And people keep asking about Quinn, so I'll give you an update there. Not that I really have one, but I was thinking about him today. But anyway, we went 8 hours and 15 minutes nonstop. No breaks, no nothing. I don't even know how that happened. But today we did 5 hours, which was cool. And so that's going to take a while to upload. It's a bigger one, but probably going to go for an hour and a half to 2 hours tonight. I got to get some sleep, but it's a holiday tomorrow here in the United States, so I don't have to get up early for trading. But yeah, the live today, by the way, it was really, really thumping. It was good. We had a bunch of people on a panel, and we had some people come in who were very pro-Israel, and we had some people come in that weren't. And we actually had some people that were formerly Zionists that then changed their point of view and came to a different conclusion, and they shared their stories, which I thought was very interesting. And there are actually a few people that are going to come on, hopefully to either like a podcast or maybe a co-hosted live or something like that. Some people don't want to show their face, so they may come up without their camera, and that's fine. But yeah, I think some longer form conversations are going to be cool. And I think, Joe Rogan, I guess, is like the pioneer of this, but some things do require, a good lengthy 30 or even hour or longer sometimes to kind of get all the stuff out. I mean, just talking about what goes on in the West Bank, let's face it, that's like an hour and a half just to cover all the horror show there. Just one sec. So just to reiterate, I was at the Washington, D.C. March for Gaza yesterday, and it was great. I mean, if you haven't seen the video that I posted yet, I put a video on my page, and it's summarized. I got a lot of footage while I was there, so I just put together some clips. But a lot of people came up to me and were like, "Hey, you're Chip, aren't you, from TikTok?" Yeah, that's me. And so I got to say hi to a lot of people. And a few people wanted to take like videos or pictures and stuff, and like micro celebrities. One of my favorite neighbors said to me as I was crossing paths in the laundry room, he's like, "Hey, you're TikTok famous," which is kind of meaning you're not that famous, but it's, and hopefully it doesn't come back to bite me in the ass, right? With the bad people overseas, the Zios. But anyway, we'll see. Yeah, 500,000 in London yesterday. It was about between 400 and 450,000 in Washington, D.C., which is very, very encouraging, right? And I think the writing's on the wall. A couple of callers earlier said, it's very simple. People are pissed, and they're no longer going to take... This may be a big turning point in history, by the way. And this may have been a huge overcalculation by the Israeli government and the United States, thinking that they could just keep on doing the same old shit and no one would do anything like they haven't before. I get the sense that a lot of people have really, really, really woken up. And they're like, you know what, this is bullshit. And they look at all the other stuff, they're like, well, if this is bullshit, everything else has got to be. And so they just really started to question stuff. Not everybody, but enough people that it's a difference, right? Let's hope. So, yeah, if you want to come up and wait in the guest queue yet? Nope, not yet. Yeah, there were 9 people waiting to come in when I closed it down. Somebody says Lapre's not still a mod. I made her one. Let me try it again. Sorry about the noise. I need some water for the dog. If you can make another comment, Lapre, I can put you in again if it didn't work. Lapre, here we go. Lapre. For some reason, it's not working. It's just giving me like a timeout. Let me try one more time. Here we go. Add moderator. Ready? Change people out. Confirm. Okay, it did it again, so hopefully it'll work this time. Yeah. We always think there's nothing we can do, but if you think about it, you can do something like this, or you can just talk to other people, or you can do some volunteer work with a group, or there's always something we can do. Although it feels kind of helpless with what's going on right now. All right, let me get a bit of water here. I got hungry cats too. Got to feed the creatures. So we're going to take a little more time. If you don't mind, if you could, so we can attract a few more viewers, if you could please tap on my face and make the little heart thing go. That would help a lot. They're definitely restricting the circulation of my lives. They're not telling all my followers, and when people flip through lives, I'm not appearing there, it just sucks. But it is what it is. I don't know if you know who Midwestern Marks is, but he's a guy he was doing an interview with a Yemeni person who knows about what's going on there, and they banned the guy, not Midwestern Marks, but the guy he was interviewing. Which again, even though he's Yemeni, doesn't mean he's with the Houthi rebels, right? They were just talking about, whatever. So that's just TikTok, and this is what's happening now. Here you go. So unfortunately, it sucks, but you can't cry about it. You just got to work around it. Yeah, Rachel, that's exactly the point. Rachel just said I had to search for you. So this is why if you have people in your friends list and you can invite them to the live, I think you can do that. And I can probably do that too. Let me see if I can find them in my list here. Yeah, let me see if I can do that. Because, I don't know, I can't see it now. Maybe when you first go, you can do that. But yeah, if you don't mind either hitting the like, or even inviting some people, I don't know how you can do that, but you guys know, or you guys and girls. Christianity and Judaism believe in a young earth, but Islam says, and I think that's more accurate. So somebody says Christianity and Judaism look at the shorter term, like 6,000 years of creation, but Islam looks further back. Who knows? I mean, the whole thing, we've talked about this before. As far as existence is concerned, who the hell knows how things got started? If there was a start, right, there may just be this weird continuum that we have no clue what it even is. I kind of think it's probably that. And we just can't get our heads around it, because maybe it's suprahuman, meaning it's beyond the human realm of understanding, is my guess. And who knows? Maybe that level of consciousness or understanding just doesn't exist within us, and so it's perplexing, right? But there's when people say there was a Big Bang, well, my question is, what was before that? And was there, who knows? I mean, was that just the start? And what does the start come from? I just don't know. So somebody named Sohad says he can help on the subject. That's cool. Oh, by the way, if you do come up into the guest group, which I hope you will, I try to be fair. I mean, I very rarely drop anybody, but if you could, if we do start going in order, if you could have the patience, just let each person say, we usually have somebody on between 2 and 5 minutes. They say what they want to say. I may or may not interact with them while they're talking, and then usually we'll go to the next person. And in the last conversation, somebody was still like 3 positions away from going, and they kept jumping in and interrupting like 10 times. I'm like, all right, enough. So that's only the second person I've ever had to let go from a live, which I don't like doing. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. All right, let me see if I can find the cat's stuff here. Got to feed the cats, they got to get their food too. Yeah, so I'm sure my dog is upset. I'm not a meat eater, and all dogs love having table scraps, right? So unfortunately for them, so be it. But I grew up that way, like most people. I grew up eating that stuff, and I still like it, by the way. It tastes good, but I can't stand factory farming. I don't know how you all feel about that, but it breaks my heart. And by the way, one of the videos, I don't know if I shared this with you, the first video that I saw coming from the October 7th attacks was an H group fighter going into one of these kibbutzim, and he shot a dog. That was the first thing I saw. I was just like, that breaks my heart. I know that we're supposed to love people more than dogs, but I got to tell you, for me, it's a tough one. Stay back, Ruby. Stay back. Here you go, Barney. So so let's just get into it. So we were talking earlier today about a lot of things, but mostly around the conflict. We talked about the fact that Germany is now supporting the Israelis, which is hard to stomach. We talked about the fact that the Western media, the Western corporate media, did not cover the first day of the testimony of the ICJ hearings, which is just same old despicable, incomplete, inaccurate coverage we get on Western media. It really sucks. But it's not unexpected, right? So my fur babies owe me. Well, yeah, I look at it this way, I don't think that people always say I have a rescue. I think the dog rescued me, right? That's probably what's more accurate. But I remember when I, just so you don't know, my dog's name is Ruby. Ruby, say hi to everybody. Say hi. There you go. That's Ruby. And so I was considering adopting, and I went into a shelter, and I turned the corner, and she just gave me those eyeballs like, you know what, please get me out of here. And they told me she had been there for 3 weeks. And I used to volunteer at this shelter, so I know some of the staff. And I had to. That was it. Just boom, she got me. And so she's been great. She's a really fun companion, and she loves to play and run, and she loves other dogs. She's a joy. And the only thing that upsets me sometimes is she'll whine sometimes if I don't take her out. She'll just whimper. I'm like, Ruby, stop whimpering. But anyway, she just finished her food. She ate it like in 3 seconds, which is typical for dogs. But yeah, so a lot of the arguments we hear, and we had a really good conversation about the various things about October 7th, which is, by the way, if you're thinking about this strictly from an Israeli standpoint, and you don't think as much from the other person's point of view, which is what a lot of people do, right? It makes sense that they're upset, that they feel, that they feel victimized, they feel a wound, they feel like it's more like another attack like happened in Germany to their grandparents. It's kind of like a very unsettling event. And remember that they've been told, and some of it may be true, I don't know for sure, but they've been told a lot of atrocity propaganda, right? They made it sound like the worst of the worst barbaric things took place. I don't know exactly. I still can say this. I haven't seen evidence of those things that are stated. Maybe they did. They say that the testimony from others should be sufficient. I don't know what testimony they've heard. All I know is this. There was a lot of mayhem, and a lot of people didn't make it through the mayhem. But who caused it and what exactly happened, there's a lot of conjecture. And I don't think it's fair to make a blanket statement on either side as to what happened, because I think there's a lot of unclarity there. But I will tell you this. I believe that if there really were atrocities that happened about burning and babies and, graping and mutilations and whatever it may have been, that we would see some of that with some of the faces blurred out to show that, it happened. And they'd do the appropriate, censorship or whatever. They had self-censorship to make it. But if they had the evidence of that, we would see it. And they say they showed it to a select group of journalists, which I believe they showed some film. They showed the same thing to Elon Musk when he visited there. And I don't know what it has in there. And I think that I know this. I listened to a guy named Owen Jones, who was one of the journalists. He's a YouTuber, and he saw it with another colleague of his. And he lives in France, but he's from the UK. And I think he's an honest guy. And he said that there was one scene that particularly upset him where a father was unalived by a grenade that was thrown. I don't know if the guy was armed or not. He didn't say. But, that's sad. And his two kids saw it happen to some extent. That's what Owen said. But that's all I've heard. That's the only direct evidence. Now, I've seen videos, just to let you know, this is what I've seen. I've tried to follow as much as I can. I've not gotten much. But I've seen, on the GoPro cameras, I've seen about 5 people who seem to be civilians inside of vehicles get, POW'd. That's all I've seen. I've not seen any harm to females. I've not seen any harm to the concert goers. I've seen concert goers that were unalived, and it may have happened by the age group, because who knows? I just don't know. I've seen unalived people, but not the actual unaliving of those people. So, but I would imagine that if you had to guess, between the IDF response and between those who are uniformed or who are signed up for service, which is most people in Israel, right? They could tangentially be considered as combatants because they're personnel in the military, even though they were, quote, having their day off or they weren't working at the time. But when it comes to conflict, you can't say, well, you know what, I'm not in uniform right now, so it doesn't count. No, it doesn't work like that. Now, someone who's from the Israeli standpoint is going to say that's outrageous. How can I say that? They didn't have their weapon. Listen, I'm sure you've heard the term all's fair in love and war, right? That's a common phrase. And that's kind of the reason. It's like you don't get to make these little declarations. It's just, now, I'm not laughing about what happened. Make that clear. Because anytime a civilian is harmed, it's horrific. And I think that should be excluded in all cases. And I also say, in terms of the United States, if you look what our history did, our patriots, our forefathers that were fighting the British occupation of the U.S. colonies back in 1775, they did some pretty bad stuff. It's not in our history books because it's not very flattering, but they would go into the homes of where the British had taken their property, and they would just get everybody. If it moved, it was gotten. And that's like, just, there's a reason behind that. You're trying to make it very difficult for somebody to want to continue oppressing you because you're just doing stuff that, it terrorizes. It is a form of terror. But so it doesn't necessarily have to be a state actor or a non-state actor that creates a terroristic environment. It can be a state actor that carries out very similar atrocities or does things to terrorize a group of people, and they just happen to be wearing uniforms or police officers of a state. But a lot of times the term is only used for non-state actors who are pushing back against some sort of oppressive or establishment thing. So it's all about where you stand on the issue, right? So they say one man's T word is another person's freedom fighter. And so I think that that's all based on perspective. Now, I tend to look at it this way, and a lot of people disagree, and that's okay. If somebody were in occupying or oppressing me, even if they weren't occupying my territory, if they were just oppressing me on a regular basis and they were treating me like shit and my family members were being unalived or whatever, I'd be pissed. And I think any human being in those circumstances would not like it, and they would probably try to figure out a way to stop it or at least lash out. And I think that's what this was. And I know it's not great what happened, but it shouldn't be unexpected. And anybody who makes the statement from the Israeli side that everything was fine on the 6th, they started this war with us, that's a very misinformed and a very disingenuous statement. If you can't see the fact that a whole group of people were negatively affected by the establishment of your country, just like in my country, same thing. We were a state, and then what did we do? We went west with Manifest Destiny, and we just basically blasted everything in sight that wasn't our people. And that's wrong. And just because it was wrong for us and it was done, 180 years ago doesn't mean it's right now because we did it back then. That's not good logic, right? Bad is bad, good is good, that's bad. The only difference is that we're watching it happen in real time right now. Of course, 1948 is somewhat in the past, 80 years ago, but it's still not forever. It's not 190 years ago or whatever that was. Anyway, it's not too late to make a difference is the point of this, and to point it out in real time is fair. And one of the persons up on the panel earlier said, well, why all the focus on this issue? Why not, Syria? Why not the children there? Or, whatever. Why not put your focus there? Why are you so outraged about this? And why is the UN so anti-Semitic? And I'm thinking, listen, it's about the behavior. And first of all, every situation where it goes on is to be condemned, right? We don't want to see anybody civilian get harmed. But This one's especially bad because it's been hidden from view for decades, for the most part, because of the way the media has covered it. And the thing is, what's being talked about on social media is what gets, kind of, amplified. And right now, this is what's being talked about. And the reason it's being talked about is because the level and the depth of the depravity and the sheer inhumanity and barbarism and brutality is beyond anything we're seeing elsewhere. It's not similar. And therefore, it makes sense to focus on it because it's that outrageous. It's very emotionally charging. And one of the first videos I made when I came onto TikTok was very recently after the first days of this whole conflict, most recent, iteration. And it said, do you believe the media or do you believe your own two eyes? Because we were seeing stuff that was just like, wow, wrong. It seemed wrong, just all these bombs coming down. And, at that point it was outrageous enough with just, several hundred people or maybe 1,000 people that were hurt. And then it got to 2,000. We're like, okay, well, maybe they'll stop. Then it got to 5,000. We're like, well, they're got to stop now. And then it got to 7 and 10 and 15, the whole story. It seems like it's never ending, right? And so who knows what they're going to do as far as, moderating their behavior. But it sure would be good if they could lean on the side of their better angels and realize that this is just outright wrong. And if they're going to go after the H group, go after the H group. I think most people would understand that if you were to take in ground troops and go try to get underneath the tunnels and, try not to get all the other people harmed along the way, people at least understand that, right? It wouldn't be that outrageous. Even though war sucks and some civilians are probably going to get hurt, that happens in every war, but you're supposed to go out of your way, literally go out of your way to avoid that. But that's not what the Israelis are doing, at least it doesn't appear that way, right? They seem to be going out of their way to do the opposite and using a justification of the former to somehow justify the latter, which is, in my opinion, pathetic and cowardly. Anybody can drop something on the heads of women and children. That's pretty easy to do, right? It doesn't require you to take any risk. You're just, blasting everything in sight, not to mention animals, too. I mean, I have a friend who I've been donating to a group called Help Cats in Gaza for years, and his whole place is blown up, gone. He had 50 cats, and now he's down to like 7. And the other 43, I don't know what happened to them. But he's still alive, thank gosh. But, everything's just destroyed. And how many people are homeless right now? Think of it right now. Imagine right now, it's cold where I am. It's probably cold in Gaza. Imagine if your house just, boom, like it's gone. And half your family or 3/4 or all of your family is underneath the thing that just fell. And just the sheer horror from that alone has got to be overwhelming. But imagine now you don't have where you go. You don't have your stuff. You don't have where to go. Like, what do you do? And then you have to leave, and the people that are telling you to leave are then dropping stuff where they tell you to go. I mean, just imagine that for a second. How incredibly distressful and devastating that must be. I just can't imagine. We're all so lucky to have these relatively privileged lives while this is going on. That's why the least we can do is talk about it, right? I mean, it's like people say, "Oh, it's so brave to." No, it's not. The least we can do is talk. The best thing we can do is stop it, right? But there's not really a clear path to how to do that. So maybe this is the way we can amplify it and get more people fired up, and then hopefully turn the corner and get people to stop this craziness. Because it is crazy. Let's face it, it is crazy what's happening. It's absolutely crazy. So earlier we did have some people that were pro-Israel, which, by the way, I try to be respectful of everybody, and hopefully I followed through on that. You can't win them all, and sometimes I've noticed that the people who come in that are pro-Zionist, they got this really angry, arrogant, dismissive, interrupting, sort of like I know it all, get out of my way kind of attitude, which is, I think the worst way to convince somebody of your point of view. We had some people come up that weren't that way, who had transitioned from Zionism to thinking differently, which they were very measured and moderate in their way of speaking, which I appreciate. But there was one woman that was on, I think her name was Barbie, and although I didn't agree with a lot of what she said, I've heard a lot of the same things she said from others, and she did it in a way that wasn't too far over the top. A lot of people in the comments were like, get her off. I don't believe in kicking people off because they say things I disagree with. I do agree with getting rid of people who are disrespectful, rude, condescending, mean-spirited, name-calling, won't shut up, keep interrupting, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know about you, but when you have a multi-guest live format, the last thing you want to do is listen to people scream over each other because you can't hear any of them. And then it's just like, it just gives you a headache and you're like, swipe away. I can't tell you how many times I've swiped away from lives where that's going on. I'm like, and I want to yell at the host. It's not even the guest. It's like, host, why aren't you managing this shit better? And maybe chaos brings viewers. I don't know. I just can't stand that shit. But All right, so we have a regular here named Epi Revolution. I'm going to bring him up, and while we let a few more people filter in, please keep tapping my head, please, please, please. What's up, Epi?
Just figured I would say that it's 49 degrees in Gaza right now. I have Gaza on my weather map on my different
Oh, that's
devices.
cool. Yeah, smart move.
Uh, and I would also uh, perform a poem if I could. If I
Yeah,
could.
please. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just making this up. So there's no
Okay.
exact title. There's no title, right?
Okay.
But my
Have at it.
aim, my aim is for all of us. Okay. So in the cold, we find ourselves. We look around and we're by ourselves and we're comforted in this knowledge. There are some of us who have been ejected from the positions that we were once elected, and there are some of us who've been kicked out of college. The enemy refuses to give up, refuses to quit, and refuses to acknowledge the truth in humanity, the total insanity, and whatever else you can call it.
Is there some
I've been
background noise? Is there some? Sorry to interrupt your poem. Is there background noise where you are?
Yeah, that was just my pizza timer.
Oh, okay. Maybe untime the pizza, then we
Yeah,
continue.
I did. I turned it off.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go into a favorable area. But anyway, I digress. I think instead of a poem, I would just say this. I appreciate everyone's contribution to the struggle. I hope that we all find a way to genuinely escalate safely and lawfully, whatever that means. I predict that there will be more of the same, but I know that we can be unpredictable. So if you feel the need to participate in these things, do not feel alone. Remember, we have to organize, we have to build foundations, something that we can leave behind so that this type of thinking never leaves the collective's mind. And after that, I'll just shut up.
Okay. Thank you for that. That was interesting. Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about anything else, you're certainly welcome to. I don't want to limit your conversation if you want to speak more. Okay, I think you dropped off. Yeah, thank you. That's interesting. I'm not someone who's ever written poetry, and I certainly appreciate someone who's a good wordsmith. So, people keep asking me what I'm doing here. So I have like it's called chana masala. It's marinated chickpeas, some basmati rice, and I'm cooking up some broccoli to go with it. So nothing too fancy, just a simple vegan meal, which I try to eat as much as I can because I think it's better for our health. But it's funny. I ran into somebody on Twitter today, and they follow what's called the carnivore diet, and their diet typically is like 7 strips of bacon in the morning, then 3 or 4 beef patties for lunch, and then like a whole steak for dinner. It's just all meat. And you know, I just don't understand that. I mean, I guess you can lose weight doing that for the short term, but listen. Our gut was not meant to have meat, 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 meat all the time, 24/7, 365. It just doesn't make sense. Think about it. We evolved as human beings. Go back to like 20,000 years ago. You weren't eating cows constantly and cooking up burgers and cooking up pigs. Just we can consume it, right? It's not like we can't consume some of it. We're omnivores, but that stuff isn't good. If you put grease through your vascular system, it just you're asking for trouble, in my opinion. So anyway, all right. So we have Abu Monday. Come on up, Abu. Give me a chance to let you talk while I do a little work here.
Chip, how's it going, my brother?
Good, thanks. Hungry, but good.
Good, good. It was nice seeing you the other day.
Yeah, it was great.
Right after
What's
you
going
left,
on? Sorry. I'm sorry. Say again.
right after you left our group, Caucasian just pulled up and they were looking for you.
Oh, that's too bad. I would have loved to say hi.
Yeah, right after you left, they're like, "Oh man, we were looking for." It was they had just Zane was with them and a few other people, and they were looking for you. They're like, "Yeah, we're supposed to meet with him. We don't know where he went."
Yeah, that's too bad. Well, next time, right? We'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you guys sooner or later. Hopefully, hopefully it's closer to our end, towards New York, so you guys make the longer drive.
I don't mind. That's a great place to visit. I love it up there.
Yeah, for us, we're out here anyway, so we have to be over there. But she
Bingo.
she made a long trip. She drove like 12 hours.
Wow. Is she in the Midwest somewhere, or where's she from?
Ohio, I think.
Yeah, I've made that drive before. I used to go to a summer camp in Indiana, so it's like 15 hours. It's a long drive.
Yeah, that's a trip. I mean, our 4 hour drive wasn't too bad, but it was tiring.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, it was still tiring. Even when you pass out in the car, because we had the little bus. Oh man, we got there we're broken up. Like I slept so long. I was like, I still feel it.
Good for you. That's nice to get some sleep. I got to find out how to do that one day.
Yeah.
Good. So, did you enjoy the whole yeah, Freedom? I think you have a lot of noise in the background there. If you can mute that stuff. So, how did you enjoy the event? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, yeah, I really liked it. It was good. Did you do the march? Did you we went all the way to the White House. We stayed there for a little.
I did
And
not stay for the march part because while I was in the crowd, I was insulated. But if I start walking, and trust me, I know I've been doing this for so many times. People usually get arrested at the White House. That's where the arrests take place. So I don't think anybody got arrested this time, right?
I didn't see any arrests, but there was a double barricade. So, the original White House fence, there was an additional fence that was placed maybe 30 feet like before the original White House fence.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so they didn't allow anyone to get that close because I guess last time they put paint all over the place. Like they put red paint on their hands and yeah, they did that. I mean, people express themselves differently. One person can't judge. One person does not their actions don't reflect on entire population the same way, the K group in America doesn't reflect on all white American Christians. It wouldn't it wouldn't be good to judge an entire population. Or, you can't generalize an entire population. Yeah, but my family loved you. They were happy to meet you. I just thought I seen you live. I'm like, let me say hi to Chip.
Yeah. Did you get a final number on the number of people? I thought it was around 400,000. I keep hearing. Is that about right?
No, I didn't. But every time I'm on Instagram and TikTok, I see new people that I didn't even notice were there. But while we were leaving, so the way the march was, I think it was going down Pennsylvania. No, was it? I think it was 1400. Is it 1400 or I think it was Pennsylvania. It was going down. So as we were coming back, so we made a U-turn by the White House and we were coming back. There were still people marching towards us. Like the march was still going on, and we were there for about an hour and a half.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, so the march was pretty deep. But they
So
started a little
first,
late.
was that your first time going to an event in Washington D.C., or have you been to
No,
others?
no, I've been there many times. I've been there when I was like I think 9 years old. I'm about 35 now. I've
Okay.
I've, I've been there a few times before. We usually take the buses from the mosque. Some mosques organize a bus and then they allow us to do much stuff.
So did you? How many people did you come down with?
We were 12.
You said 12.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Yeah, I went there with. I was going to go there with somebody else who was going to come, but their plane got delayed and then got canceled from Chicago because of the bad weather.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, Zane took a flight from Texas.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't as cold down there. Chicago gets crazy snow when it gets cold off Lake
They're
Michigan.
they're
There.
pretty in the negatives over there. I don't know how they do it.
Chicago in the winter. I've been there. I used to date somebody who lived there. I went there in February. Never again, man. It was so cold. It's brutal and windy. That's the problem. It's like 4 degrees and then it's like -50 with the wind. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm
Absolutely
I'm
crazy.
in New York. I didn't think it gets any worse than this over here. You know.
These couple days are going to be cold. It's just the way it is this time of year. But I'm glad you made it home okay, and I'm glad you had a good time. I met so many nice people there. It was really a great experience, and
Yeah, absolutely,
seeing so
man.
many Palestinian flags in my life. It was, and all the signs too. They were really great.
Yeah, there was a lot of. I love seeing so many different people from different walks of life. You know, from every different community, or like all together for one cause. That speaks volumes.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Oh, you just got muted, I think. I didn't do that, by the way. You said I didn't do it on purpose. Let me see if you got muted there. See if I can unmute you. Yeah, you should be good.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's nice to say. If somebody says you have a critical mind, I enjoy watching it. Thank you. That's very nice to say. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you give different perspectives to situations.
Well,
That's
I think
what.
it's fair. I think it's fair to if you're going to think about something, and it's good to listen to other points of view too. Because the crazy part is, you learn things sometimes. You're like, "Oh, I didn't know that, and then, if you don't listen to somebody, you never learn those things, right? And you may disagree with them on 90%, but if you pick up 10, it's pretty good, right? And the other thing is, talking past each other is never going to get to solve anything, right? If we hate each other and we're always yelling at each other and not listening, there's not going to be any chance for peace. And the whole goal is to get a peaceful. Think about it. Who cares about being right? If we can find a way to stop the harm, stop it, and then get to a place where there's a peaceful resolution where people can have their own dignity and respect and self determination, that's the goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. People fail to understand that it's for the elimination of any religious people, especially not Jews. No one calls for the elimination of them from the land. People call for the elimination and destruction of Zionism because it's a racist ideology, and it was actually deemed racist in UN Resolution 3379. The United Nations Resolution 3379. They deemed Zionism as racism. It was.
Yeah, that came out in 1975, I think.
Yes, you're right, 100%. I did a video about it, 1975, correct?
Yeah, I have the actual like a poster board of that in my photos because if somebody ever, it's amazing they said Zionism is a racist ideology. That's a pretty
Yeah.
amazing statement.
And the worst part about it is that they try to translate anti-Zionism into anti-Semitic when you don't have to be a Semite or Jewish to be a Zionist. So how does that even? It's such a conflicting understanding. It's it makes no
Yeah,
sense.
we've
They're
talked about
words
that.
of deception. They're words of deception. They, at first,
Hold on, Philistine. I'm not going to do a group thing quite yet, but there was some background noise on your side, Abu. I didn't want to, did people in the chat are saying a bunch of that. Just 1 second, Freedom Philistine. I'll get you on there. That whole thing about Zionism and Semitism is, it's accurate. Let's face it. You say that people of Semitic origin are from that region. A lot of people from Palestine are Semitic people, right? And they're from the region. But somehow the term got hijacked along the way, so it only applies to people who are Jewish from that area, and therefore all Jewish people, which then anti-Semitic. If you're an Ashkenazi person, you're not a Semite, but they now have lumped everybody together and they made the term anti-Jewish, which is a bastardization of the term, but it's still what's colloquially accepted now as anti-Jew. So it's hard to get on that train and talk about that way. Did you want to say anything else, Abu, or do you want to pass the mic to Freedom, or how you feeling?
I'll pass the mic. I just wanted to say hi, show some love.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. It was nice to see everybody, and I'm glad you made it home safely. And hopefully, we will do the breaking of bread the next time we meet and whatever.
Yes, definitely we will.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for calling in. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Good stuff. Yeah, lots of great people. I got to tell you, that's the joy of being in places like that where you're around safe people that are kind and considerate and they're caring and just good stuff. Okay, Freedom, I'm sorry to cut you off there. Let's bring you back on the mic here. And please finish whatever thought you had. Did I not touch that? There we go.
there we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
As I was saying, they're words of deterrence. Just like the race word was bastardized. We're all human beings. We're all of the human race. There's nobody above anybody else, whether you're blue, purple, green, black, brown, yellow. It doesn't matter. We are all humans. Until there's aliens on this planet, there's only one race. And
Yeah. But some people are saying that that's happening right now,
Mhm.
with aliens. I
oh,
don't know about that, right?
yeah, I I think there might be something plausible to that, but I also believe that it's also, forms of deterrence to get you look the other way while they continue to control the narrative and do what they want to do as far as imperialism and the one world government that they want to put in place. Uh, I remember when they were meeting at the United Nations about Iraq, the French ambassador came out and he said, "This is not about whether Saddam Hussein stays or goes. This is about who's going to lead the New World Order." So it's these elitists that are in place that just want to globalize everything and do away with nationalism and countries and things of that nature, so they can enslave all of humanity at once in their way and try to stop the. Well, they say they're going to try to stop the wars, but it's enslavement. And as long as people think that they're above other people, there's always going to be that resistance no matter what. Oh, I can't hear you.
Do you think that this is controversial, and I don't want to get kicked off of TikTok Live for saying this, so forgive me, TikTok. I'm not doing it to be, mean spirited. I'm really just curious. People have said that they think that there's this plan that Zionism or Zionists are involved in, that there's this master plan to try, like you said the word enslave, or to control
Yes,
others. Now, do you believe that's true?
I believe it is. It was put out by uh, Jews in Palestine. Some of these rabbinical Jews that when their Messiah comes, then each one of them will have 2,400 slaves.
Is that
So
in the
that's the
Talmud?
idea.
Where's that from? The Talmud or something? Or
I guess it's from the Talmud because these people were regurgitating it. When I come across that video, I'll try to send it to you in a telegram.
yeah.
So that's their belief, is that when their Messiah comes, that each one of them will have 2,400 slaves or 2,800 slaves, some irrational number like that. So that's their belief, and that's their in their ideology.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So uh, when I heard it, I was absolutely, you know, dumbfounded by it. Um, then again, when I see the actions and the lack of empathy for human life that's being demonstrated right now in the West Bank and in Gaza, uh, pretty much, tells me that there's something narcissistically wrong with these people. That they can, just unalive people and go about living their normal life. And to me, that's, and laugh about it. One Israeli female soldier, she said, "Yeah, I pew pew to Palestine," and
Yeah,
she's laughing about it.
saw that.
So yeah, so it's really ridiculous.
It's gross.
It is very gross, very gross.
It's funny. People always ask me to predict what's going to happen next. What do you think is going to happen next? I'm like, I don't know. It depends on what the Netanyahu government decides to do at this point. But I think the pressure is really, really mounting now for them to stop. And if this ICJ thing goes through and they get convictions, the pressure is really going to be, because you're supposed to stop all hostilities if you're convicted of these things. So we'll see what they do. I think that the arrogance and the ego of these types of leaders is so ridiculously off the chain that they're just going to keep doing whatever the hell they want until somebody physically stops them. That's what they've done so far.
Well, yeah, I'm in full concurrence of that. I was on a live with another Israeli that was saying that Netanyahu's rating is like 20% now. They're saying
Really?
that his political life is over.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's yeah.
I hope so, but they need to get rid of those other right wingers that were, doing the same thing and spewing the same garbage as Netanyahu, like Stromrich and Gavin and all these far right extremists.
It's Basilos, Smotrich, and Itmar Ben Gvir. Those are the two ministers that are the most hardcore right wings.
Yes, and they're Chabad. They're Chabad um,
Which is
Jews,
the
which
furthest
are
furthest right in the world. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
right, and they're the ones that they, the Chabad Jews that they found the tunnels in Brooklyn underground and everything else.
Yeah.
That's the same sect that these guys are from. So they're very, very racist and very uh, right wing and fascist, is what I want to say. Uh,
Yeah.
there was a an American Jew by the name of Mark Bernstein. He wrote a article back in the 70s after he was there for, he went to defend Israel in the Yom Kippur War, and when he came back, uh, he wrote a statement saying that Russia and Israel were trying to destroy or working together to destroy the United States.
Really?
Yeah. You can look it up online. It's called Life of an American Jew in Marxist Racist Israel by Jack Bernstein. But he was
So,
unalived by the Mossad back in the 70s.
oh, he was. He's no longer living.
He's no longer living. No.
That they do a pretty good job of that. By the way, I'm probably somewhere on the list somewhere. I'm probably not high on the priority, but I'm sure I'm somewhere on somebody's list.
Oh yeah. Well, I've already been there. I've been targeted before, so I've been through the thing. I had a Zionist DA say because I was Palestinian and I was doing a radio show, therefore I was a terrorist. So
Yeah, that's absurd. They say that the march is like yesterday. They say it's a pro H group rally, not a pro Palestinian rally, which is
yeah,
absurd.
of course, that's what they're going to do. That's the narrative that they're going to put out. I'm seeing a little less bias in the media, but it's still going to be there no matter what. They have to follow the curriculum that's put in place for them. Otherwise, they're ousted like everybody else that spoke the truth.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case on the censorship here on TikTok. A lot of people are complaining about it, but I can tell you, as someone who's been censored a lot, it's getting out. It's worse than it's ever been right now at this very moment. So hopefully that can change, but I think that's going to get worse actually before it gets better, is my guess. So
Yes, I agree. I agree.
coming up, I really appreciate you and look forward to the next time we get to talk some more.
Definitely.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You-
If you're watching, I don't know if you're here for the first time. Do me a favor if you don't mind. If you're watching and you're a first time watcher of someone like for me, for example, can you please type the number 1 in the chat, because I don't want to bore the audience with telling people who I am if everyone's already seen me. So there's one person, voice for Palestine. I like that name, by the way. And Tima, hi. Jill, hi. Stella, hey Stella. I wonder if that's the Stella. There's a Stella on TikTok who I really like. I think she's a New Yorker. She's got a very dry sense of humor. Yeah, a bunch of people. Okay, well, great. I'm glad to see there's some new people here. Welcome. Thanks for being here. So just for who the new people, my name is Chip Barnes. I'm an American. Obviously, I'm from the East Coast of the U.S. I'm an Army veteran, and I served in the first Persian Gulf War back in 1990 as a tank platoon leader. Which war. I'll just leave it like this. War is bad. It sucks. There's nothing good about it. Luckily, no one in our unit died, but a lot of us got exposed to a bunch of stuff. I won't go into it, but it's messing with me to say. That's the nice way to put it. Anyway, so I've studied a lot about geopolitics in my life. I was a political science major in college way back in 1989 when I graduated. But I found out about this issue just completely by chance. One of my classmates did a presentation as a part of our senior project on the first Intifada, which was a big uprising in 1987, and that she was talking about it in 1989. So I, like most Americans, didn't have a clue. I didn't know there was a Gaza Strip. I didn't know there was a West Bank. I just knew that there was this country, Israel. I was just doing other stuff. And it totally blew my mind when I heard this presentation. I was like, holy smokes. So it was an immediate, like a bell going off, like, wow, that's messed up. And so I've always tried to get as much information about it over the years, and I'm not an expert. Like, there's a lot of people that know more than me, like PhDs and stuff, but I've read a lot of books and listened to a ton of audio and a lot of podcasts and a lot of lectures and whatever. And you try to sort through all that and make sense. I've also read the book by Alan Dershowitz called The Case for Israel. and I went to the Israel March, and I read other stuff that's pro-Israel. I try to keep it balanced, but there's not. This one isn't a tough one. This is pretty straightforward, right? It's oppressor, oppressed. It's a pretty simple situation, unfortunately. But I've been a business guy most of my life. I've kind of started doing social media about 3 months ago, so I'm brand new at this. Forgive me for my rookie season, but I've enjoyed it. I've had my account's been taken down on TikTok 4 times, unfortunately, since I started doing this. It was actually 4 times in the first 5 weeks. So I thought, man, social media sucks. You can't do anything, and they're gonna. But somehow I'm back on, and I'm happy that I'm here. I do have a backup account, just to let everybody know if you're new. Most content creators now, unfortunately, because this stuff happens, you have to have a plan B, because plan A is out of your control. So if you go to my link tree in my bio, which I highly suggest you do, not only will you see my TikTok backup account, so if you follow that, I had a lot of people say, hey, where'd you go, man? I haven't seen you in weeks. Well, it's because they weren't following my backup account and something happened with this. So there's other videos that I've made that aren't on my primary account that you can only see on my backup account. I did that for people to go check it out. But please follow me there, because then if we have a snafu, you can still be seeing these lives, which I think are fun. My normal schedule, for those of you who are new, is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I go from 8 p.m. Eastern time to 10 p.m. usually, maybe a little longer sometimes if I'm feeling crazy. And then Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I go from 12 noon until about 2 p.m., sometimes a little longer. Today was a special day because we have a holiday here tomorrow, so I just decided to jump on, and I was on from like 3 p.m. until about 8 p.m. and just took a break before I came back on now. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. If you missed any of this or the one earlier today, today's was great. We had like 20 or 30 people that came on. It was really cool. And we had some great conversations with some pro-Zionists and some, people that were Zionists but now we're no longer, and people that were pro-Palestine. It was just a really good, had a good vibe going on. But if you want to see that, it'll be uploaded to my YouTube and to my Rumble channel sometime when I finish this. It's got to go do the work. So you can check all of my lives are archived on those 2 sites. If you want to know how to get to my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel, which is just another version of YouTube owned by a different company, you can go to my link tree in my bio, and you click on that, and it'll be self-explanatory. You just click your way through. So thanks for the help. And by the way, I have a lot of people that help me in the moderator section. They do a great job. And someone who just came on recently, and I don't remember the exact name, but you know who you are. So thank you for helping out. I really appreciate it. It's so much easier to do this when you don't have to do that. So I really appreciate it. And all the nice comments from people. Thank you for the compliments. The least I can do is speak up, right? I mean, people that learn about this, especially Americans, I think it means a lot to people who are in the Palestinian territories. If people from outside, the Western world, are paying attention and then see it through the same eyes as they see it, or at least as best we can, given that we're Westerners, right? But that we understand their plight, and that's sometimes that feels pretty good. Sorry, my allergies are kicking in with my cat. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't have cats because I'm allergic, but I just love cats too much, so I can't not have cats. Anyway, so it's good to be able to see great people. Like yesterday at the march, I saw some really good people that, just kind-hearted. It just warms your heart that there's so many good people in the world. We're seeing some of the worst behavior in the world right now, but that's that's the exception, right? Most people are good people. So with that in mind, there were some more people that are waiting here, I think, too. So right now we have Fuad. I think it said Fuad. Let's bring Fuad up. So I appreciate everybody being here. I hope you'll follow me. I have a lot of great videos that cover a whole wide range of stuff. I think you'll find them interesting, going back to October when I first started. So I talk a lot about big picture politics, like geopolitics, Ukraine war, the moneyed class, the class structure, just all the big picture stuff that we need to be talking about. So Fuad, welcome to the live. I hope you have something you want to talk about. And by the way, if you're somebody who disagrees with me, even better. I like to talk to people. How you doing?
Good. How are you? This is Fuad. Actually, I don't have much to say. My daughter is a fond lover of your network, so she talked about it so much, and I am happy she had. Sorry, this is my first time participating in such a forum, and I'm talking from Indonesia.
Okay.
Yes. And my daughter is told me about this show, and I'm very, very, very. I appreciate what she. Yes. So how are you, Chip? Everything good? Thank you. I just want to thank you, actually, for what you've been doing for justice in the world, peace, brotherhood, whatever. That's all. I don't have much. I'm a Palestinian refugee from Lebanon.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And yes, that's.
I'm 56. Were you old enough to when the Israelis invaded in 1982? Do you remember
No,
that?
I was then in 1955 in a refugee camp in the suburbs of Beirut.
Okay.
And at age 3, I've seen the American parachuters coming from the sky,
Yeah.
helping
Yeah.
the right government at that time. Anyhow, yeah, yes, yes.
Lebanon's had such a tumultuous ride over the years. It's been destabilized purposely on so many levels. So I feel badly for the Lebanese people, who are great people, by the way. So thank you for contacting me. Thank you to your daughter, by the way. Please tell her I said hello, and thank you for sharing the show
Thank
with me.
you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much. I would be there with all the time joining your. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, the power of the internet, right? That was Indonesia. Think about that for a second. We're reaching somebody all the way across on the other side of the world, right? That's fantastic. Oh, congratulations. We have more people from Lebanon. One of the people who I really like watching, by the way, this is a quick tangent, but she's Lebanese, and her name is Mariam Awada. Mariam, M-E-R-I-A-M Awada. She's got a lot of tattoos and stuff. She's very distinguishable, but she's Lebanese, and she did some really good updates, and I'm sure she's following what's happening in southern Lebanon and Beirut. It's it's crazy that the fact that they did a targeted assassination on a multi-story building to get one H group member who was a pretty high-ranking person and very beloved in the H group. But it just goes to show you that they do have the capacity, meaning Israel, to do targeted strikes, right? They can be very precise, which this was. And the fact that they're claiming that they're being precise, yet not demonstrating they're precise, is the problem, right? And it's just, I think anybody from the third grade on up can look at what's happening and kind of realize that what they're saying is a bunch of, malarkey versus what they're doing. Okay, we have, is this no, this is Purpose 5. Anyway, whomever this is, please come on up. I just undid your microphone there.
Okay, hon.
Hi.
It's nice to meet you. Actually, I've seen many of your videos, many of your posts, and I respect what you do. You're very much an inspiration. And in light to that, and the start of everything else, I didn't know anything about the Palestine or anything of that such. So I had to do my own research from both sides to understand what really was going on. And I had to understand the conflicts between the two, the history, the reasoning for that. And even going back to the 3000 BC, I had to learn that stuff. And I'm not just looking at one side, I always look at the other side. And yeah, what you're saying, what they're doing right now is not exactly solving the problem.
Making it way worse. Yeah, I think if every time you unalive people in a group that you have issues with, it just breeds more hate and resentment. Think about it. If you're somebody who's 7 or 8 years old right now and your whole family just got taken out and you start to learn the lore of your community, what are you going to do when you turn 18 or 16 or whatever it may be? You're not going to be a happy camper. You're probably going to be downright pissed, right? And I think that's happened enough over the years that's what fuels the resistance to the extent it does. And for every one person you take out in the resistance, 3 more pop up because it's just the way it works. And so I don't believe that this is by any means the right thing to be doing. I think this is actually the worst thing Israel could be doing if they want to look out for their own survival, because it's making them look terrible, right? But there's people in charge that don't think of that reality. They just think of their own personal desires, their own political future, and they don't care about the consequences, which is really disgusting.
Hopefully, the vicious cycle, it will never end until somebody does something responsible and gives the people their freedom. And I have to say, it's what they're doing right now. There's hostages, right? what they're doing, you know, bombing all over, booming all over Gaza, flooding the tunnels, what does that actually do for the hostages? It's
Well,
not.
yeah, all of the activity they've been doing is showing a blatant disregard for human life, both Palestinian and for the Israeli hostages. So I don't think that's their number one concern, clearly, or they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. The families in Israel are pissed. I mean, there was just a video on Twitter today that I saw where these moms were screaming across the border into Gaza, like, get the hostages out, get them out now. They're pissed at the government. I mean, the Israeli government is not liked right now because of a lot of the families. They're downright pissed. In fact, the spy, Jonathan Pollard, a while back said to the hostage families, hey, either shut your mouth or we're going to make you shut your mouth. Let us do this our way. Shut the hell up. I mean, imagine the nerve of that. These are families who are missing their loved ones.
That is right, Chip. I'm a Buddhist. And I actually, I had a Buddhist meeting today, and we had a group meeting about the three poisons, about greed, about anger, about aggression, and how the economy can really impact the anger upon people and the continuation in the cycle of everything else. And as a Buddhist, I see as for both sides, for both civilians, I feel like the government is not doing doing their job at all. And as a Buddhist, that goes against my entire belief system. It goes against everything.
If you were in charge right now, what would you, or you were an advisor to the government, what would you tell them to do?
I would, for once, oh man, it's very hard, but I would think about the hostages, think about their safety, and the civilians, the Palestinian civilians as well. I don't think bombing everything is going to solve any of it. I think they need to go in there and they need to do a surgical removal. They don't need to destroy everything, because I mean, look at other wars. When they bombed everything, boomed everything, it didn't exactly fix anything. And I think they need to do, like, I don't know, tell between civilians and the age group, because I feel like they're and I've seen it before. They literally, like, do not care, even when they have a white flag and are completely unarmed. It's just, yeah, I have no words for how they act as a military group. Like, you see other militaries had, like, I don't know. I just think they need to be more. They need a better strategy instead of just destroying everything they see.
I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of people in Israel feel that way at this point too. They're mad that the attacks took place, but they also don't like the Netanyahu government. Very few people do. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people think the strategy is misguided, and I do too. I mean, just forgetting about the morality of it for a second, just the political implications of it, I think Israel is shooting itself in the foot by doing this. This is like the worst thing they could possibly do for their own political future. And as people say, they're a pariah nation now. They will never be the same again, ever. And it might prompt a movement that will dismantle a lot of the elements of the Zionist state. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but it wouldn't be undeserved, right? Given what they've done.
Very true.
Well, thanks for coming up. I really appreciate it. Is there anything more
Yeah.
to add to the conversation?
Yeah, it was nice talking to you, Chip, and being able to listen to you and you being able to listen to me. It was good talking with you, hon.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the goal here is to actually listen to each other, right? And not talk past each other, especially if you disagree. So thanks for being up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Bye.
Okay, take care. Yeah, that's the goal, right? In fact, I hope there's somebody in the audience. Usually there's somebody who disagrees. Sometimes they're bots. Like they'll say, stop lying. So that may be a pre-programmed thing. And a lot of times, someone's a bot, just so you go to their profile and they have like one follower or whatever. And that means usually they're a bot. Yeah, so let's address this issue. Somebody keeps asking, did the U.S. send troops to Israel? So this is the word, quote unquote, on the digital street. I saw a video today, and a few people have been bringing it up. So let's talk about it. So the video that's been circulating is the one that I've seen is this younger guy who has a friend who just got a deployment notice that with his unit, American soldier, that's taking X number of soldiers over to Israel, and that they're planning to be there for 1 year, which is not a very short deployment, obviously. And we know that Indian troops are already there. I don't know if somebody may have mentioned that, because there's a big Zionist movement in Israel. And, that's alarming if more American troops are pouring in, and that may think that the powers that be think this is going to escalate. Everyone seems to think that Lebanon, Hezbollah, is going to be the starting point of that, and maybe the Israelis are trying to goad them into this so they can bring more Americans. Somebody says 1,000 troops, which is not a huge number, right? But still, it's 1,000 people, right? And that's a lot of American involvement. That's boots on the ground, so to speak. So anyway, not great. Oops, my piece of broccoli fell on the floor. Oh, no, it's got hair on it. Oh well, so be it. And by the way, I'd like to have another guest come up. I do have to eat. I haven't eaten much today. I got to eat something because I don't want to chew and talk to you all. So if somebody else can come up. But yeah, let me see if there's anybody out here I want to. Oh, Barbie's here. Barbie, you want to come up and talk? I'd love to hear you say some more things if it's the same Barbie from earlier, because we didn't really finish. We had so many people. I kind of had to shorten you out. I'll invite you up if you want to come up and say a thing or two. Again, I like to hear from other people. In fact, I shared with Barbie, I think I shared with her the Life in Occupied Palestine documentary. I don't know if I did that or not, but I'd love to hear more. Listen, it's really important to understand other people's points of view, in my opinion. And everyone is where they are for a reason. Like, I'm where I am in my journey because of what I've bumped into and the people I've met and the things I've taken a look at. But it doesn't mean I'm right. It just means that I have my take, and Barbie has her take, and you have your take, or whoever's listening. And everybody thinks their take is right? Wherever you are right now, you think, well, this has got to be right because this is what I figured out, but not necessarily, right? Why is there American involvement in Gaza? That's a question that was come up by Sweet Red Sea. Sorry, if I could read. Well, think about it. The United States is preparing for the potential, it looks like, that there may be additional, military activity and to have some soldiers on the ready for grounding, or it may be reinforcements for Gaza. That could be the other thing, right? Which is probably more likely. And if you don't know why, the Israelis are really struggling in Gaza. I mean, really struggling. They won't tell you that. They're underreporting the number of casualties by a large number. And the way you know that is, listen, you can't hide. Families know when their bodies come back, right? You know when your son or daughter is being buried, right? So you can't hide that, but they're not reporting it in the media correctly. So, and that makes sense. Most countries don't want to overemphasize the damage they're taking. But believe me, on the ground, they are no match for the H group. And nobody wants to hear that. But that's the truth. I mean, if you follow Scott Ritter or Colonel Douglas McGregor, they've been talking about that for the last 2-3 months, just saying that there's no way. And by the way, if this thing does escalate, I think even with U.S. backing, this is going to be a tough slog because people are pissed. And if this thing does ramp up, just think of it this way, okay? Let's say you're a U.S. or Israeli soldier. Just use common sense for a second. I got to bend down so my knees are, my back's hurting me. Think of this. Let's say you join the military or you're doing your obligatory service in Israel. Are you a hardened soldier? You're not someone who's been in the military for 10 years or 5 years. You just did your duty, right? You're doing your training, and maybe you did your 3 years IDF service and you beat up some old ladies in the West Bank and shot some kids in the knees or whatever you did. But you've never fought an adversary who's armed. You've never been shot back at. It's a whole different thing, right? So that's a tough thing for someone who's been in Tel Aviv and chilling on the beach and getting on TikTok and effing around and having a good time, and then boom, you're in a uniform and you're trying to fight against a hardened enemy like the H group or Hezbollah. You can't hear me? You guys can't hear me? How about now? Can you hear me now? I think I have my finger near the mic. Is that okay? You can hear me now? Okay, yeah. People can hear me. So, like I said, the concern is for Israel and the U.S. Yes, there's some good soldiers in the U.S., right? But the army that we had even in 1980 or 1990 is not the army we have today. That's because I was some special person. I was there, probably starting to get a little worse. The recruits now, for the most part, these are people that are taking money to be in the army. And these are young kids who are looking for a leg up in life. They're not hardened soldiers, not badass people. They're people that the army can get. Their recruitment level is going through the floor. Because nobody, first of all, the Americans, let's face it, the younger generation and America in general has gotten fat. You have to have certain physical capabilities to join the army. They've been lowering those standards bit by bit to try to bring people in. The recruitment goals is so hard to get people to go in the army. Nobody wants to fight in the army, right? There may have to be a draft eventually. But you have people. Thanks for the knighthood. I appreciate that. So you have people in the military that aren't military people. They're people that are there for the opportunity economically to do their service and get the hell out, right? And they don't want to fight in a war. I didn't want to fight in a war. I'll be truthful, but I don't think that on a person to person. They used to say man to man, but it's not a male situation anymore. The army is embracing wokeism, which is like inclusive nature. People who are transgender, people who it's more like it's like a social club now than it is a military force. And it's I got my phone uncovered. For those of you, I don't know why some people can't hear me, but it's all completely uncovered. Anyway, so the same thing with Israel. These are not hardened troops that have been working together as a unit, training effectively for months or years. These are people that are now put into a tank or given a gun and says, okay, good luck, go do your thing. That's not a military. And you're not going to fight a hardened adversary like the H group, who are very motivated, know the terrain very well. They have the ability to go underground and hide and pop up when they need to. It's very, very difficult to fight an adversary like that. I would not want to fight in that kind of conflict. I'd probably die, as will they. And the fact when they move into certain parts of Gaza that have been leveled by the Air Force, which is, by the way, the only thing that the Israelis do well is bombing. Same thing in Lebanon. All they do is they bomb the crap out of stuff. But when it comes to ground serve, no, they suck. So they're a big military, and they have a lot of financial backing. They have a lot of advanced weaponry. But listen, when you get down to it, it's boots on the ground, right? It always has been, always will be. And so you can't take over another people without getting on the ground and getting dirty. So, it's a challenge. The Israelis know that. They believe me. If you're a commanding officer in the Israeli military, you know what's going on right now, and you're not liking it because it's just a tough enemy. But these young soldiers are so arrogant and so cocky. They've gone down to like the beach area in northern Gaza, and they're dancing on the beach, kind of joking around, kind of making fun of the fact that the place has been leveled and like, aha, dumb, And you see these videos. If I was the H group and I saw the videos, I'd be like that, even further pissed off and just want to deal with these people. But they're arrogant, they're young, and they haven't faced a hardened enemy yet. They're just goofing off. But when you get into hardcore combat, it's a whole different ballgame. And what it does to you is it just absolutely screws you up because it's the most high adrenaline you ever feel. Your life's on the line. People from Israel don't want to die. Let's face it. They want to go home and play with their family and live in Israel, right? People from H group dying in combat, fighting the occupier is the highest honor you could ever have. And it gets you it earns you something in the next stage of your existence. That's a much different mindset than somebody who just wants to go back to Tel Aviv and chill, get back on TikTok and start effing around, right? So I don't think it's going to go well for them no matter what they do. They could bomb the entire place, but they're going to have to literally flood the tunnels, bomb the entire place to the ground, and force the rest of the people out for it to end. It's the only way they're going to be able to win. And they're not going to do that, I don't think, because that's just so outrageous. It won't be allowed to stand. So I really encourage someone to come up. We have 211 people. Somebody here has to want to talk because, like I said, I was involved in a very lengthy one today. I was hoping to have some more panelists tonight. So I also have to eat something. And I don't want to end the live because I want to eat and let someone else do some talking. Yeah, if you don't mind, maybe to get some few people in here who do want to talk, just tap on my head. I see some people doing it. Thank you. Tap on my forehead and maybe more people will filter in who are talkers. And by the way, if you've never come up on a live before and talked, it's not that big of a deal. it's like anything else in life. The first time is, jitters, but nobody really cares, right? Everyone's here just listening. So if you haven't done it before, I encourage you to jump in. If you're somebody who has an opinion, or if you want to ridicule the way my hair looks or whatever, I've gotten a lot of comments like that, like, you don't have eyebrows or something, people say, or whatever, and that's okay. You can take it. If you're going to dish it out, you got to be willing to take it. Good. Somebody came up. Thank goodness. All right. We have, I can't see, Samaya Jamal 16. There we go. Thank you for coming up. I appreciate you. Ugh. Ugh. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Oh,
Hi, Chip. How you doing?
good. Thank you. How about you?
Not so good.
All right.
Hearing all this news.
What's up?
I'm thinking about, the international court. How about the veto? America and Germany and who else? France and Holland. If they could vote, what could happen to the Palestinian?
What do you say? If they couldn't vote, what would happen?
No,
Or
if America could do the veto for the
well,
international court, what would happen?
well, obviously, let's just say their convictions. Like, I don't think the court has a veto process. The UN has a veto process with the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, and that's
Yeah.
what the US has been using to block action against the ceasefire. But as far as the ICJ is concerned, the court will adjudicate the parts of the case, and they'll come up with a determination, an outcome, and that outcome could be not guilty, or it could be guilty on some of the charges, or it could be guilty on most or all of the charges. And then you have named individuals. Now,
Yeah.
once you have a conviction on your record as a named individual, then the next step is prosecuting the person, like physically getting their body. And that's where the problem comes in, because they're not going to go and invade Israel to pull out Benjamin Netanyahu or anybody else, because that's just crazy. And as long as the U.S. backs up Israel and doesn't want to take the people that are being named, it's not going to happen. And so the problem is, it's a gesture, and it's an important gesture, but it's only going to have symbolic impact, and it'll be like a black eye, not a black guy, but a black eye on the
Yeah.
Israelis. But it won't do more than that, I don't believe.
So
Unfortunately.
what do you think? Like, as the people in America, I see a lot of people is waking up and having more knowledge about what's going on. Do you think they could turn around and say, we're not gonna do the veto, we're not gonna, we have to get Netanyahu or stop him, or because I think he's trying to make the war last longer, and he wants to wider the problem so he could stay in power and not be prosecuted for any problem.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you're absolutely right about that. I did a video the first week of the conflict that said "Cui bono," which means who benefits. And the fact that this attack occurred in the first place, it just appeared very conveniently that Prime Minister Netanyahu, if you don't know, was under tremendous pressure because of the judicial reform attempts that were in play. There were people out in the streets. There was a lot of turmoil.
Yeah,
Made-
yeah.
And then the fact that he also has charges against him for corruption, big time charges, and the chance of him getting out of those charges is very limited. They think he's going to be convicted and potentially go to jail for a while. So he's kind of acting out of his own survival, which is something you never want to see when it comes to a politician, because they do things that don't benefit their population. They don't make rational decisions. It's self-serving. And you add into that everything you're saying. But the problem is accountability has never been part of the Israeli experience. They've never been held accountable for anything they've done for 7.5 decades.
Yeah, they get away with everything. How about, what do you think about the Egyptian border, since they said it's up to Egypt and we have no control of the border, and now the Egyptian authorities saying no, that's not true. They gave us orders to keep the border closed, and from Rafah, from Egypt to Gaza, and they blaming the Egyptian, and the Egyptian is saying no, it's not true. It's Israel is, but they have to, make sure the, the things that it's shipping, a lot of stuff they bring it down, medicine, they controlling that. I mean, does Egypt, you think, is gonna say something? Because they tweeting and the president never said, Sisi never said anything. He just, his the politicians are writing that we have, an agreement with the Israelis that it's they asking for Philadelphia, and that's on Thursday. It's gonna be the answer. So what do you think by Thursday could happen?
I don't think anything's going to happen. I don't think the
No?
foreign governments are going to do anything much. I think that they're kind of locked into place with their current situation. Remember that Israel and Egypt have a peace accord that
Yeah.
was on the Sinai, so they would be in breach of the peace accord, which would be a major deal. I don't think they're going to do that. I think it just causes them more harm. The Egyptian people want to see the government do something, but they can't go out and protest because they'd be arrested and put in jail for a while. So
Yeah.
their hands are
I'm
tied.
Palestinian, but I never lived there. I live in America, but I have my eyes on this forever, that we got to a point that, Palestine was going to be like forgotten forever if it wasn't for the resistance, doing this again. It's like somebody was almost dying and they fed them again. So, I don't know, we so curious and sad, and it's really going too much. I mean, to see all these kids, oh, I can't even talk anymore. It's the survival, the diseases, the death, it's like, I don't know, like our mental health is not in a good place. I mean,
Yeah,
they have to feel about other humanity. Like when our kids see the news, I mean, we can't even watch the news anymore in front of the kids, seeing those horrible views, like,
yeah, it's bad.
So
It's
if
really
you
bad.
don't mind me asking, at
Just,
this point,
just one sec. I mean, I'm sorry about that. What we do here is, if you don't know, we wait until someone's completely finished before we hop around, just because it's the way it works.
okay, okay.
Thanks for. I'm not
Sorry.
trying to. That's okay. No, it's you're probably new to my life. But anyway, so I wanted to ask. You asked one thing about the Israeli control of the different border. If you don't know how the Rafah border crossing works, there's two gates: Egyptian gate, and then there's the Gaza gate. And the
yeah.
Israeli military is manning the Gaza gate between Gaza and Egypt. So they're controlling what does come in and doesn't very carefully. And they have a list of approved items. And if one truck has one item that's not approved, the truck gets turned around. So they've been very slowly letting aid in. A couple of U.S. senators came down to take a look, and they were very, very discouraged by what they saw because they thought that the pace of the humanitarian aid was just absurdly small. It's almost
Oh,
when you have an hourglass and the sands are barely going through, it's kind of like that. It's a big choke point.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, things can't be better. I wish they could be. I mean, no. Okay. Thanks you for waiting. I want to let you go ahead and say whatever you want to say.
Okay, sorry for interrupting here.
It's okay.
Okay, so my question is has there ever been a point in any of these conflicts, wars, that the United States has actually succumbed to international pressure and asked Israel to completely halt what they're doing?
One time in the 80s, President Ronald Reagan contacted the Prime Minister of Israel. I forget the name of who it was. I don't know if it was Rabin or it was Begin, and said, "Stop what you're doing, or you lose all the money." That was the last time a U.S. president has ever put pressure on Israel to stop what they're doing, ever.
Okay, and it worked.
It worked. Yep.
Okay. Because every time, like something that's been very discouraging is every time you see Biden on camera, his unwavering support for Israel, and it's as if he sees nothing that's going on with how the people feel about the situation. So do you think that at any point, like Biden will backtrack, or is that not something he's ever going to admit he was wrong about?
Well, let's look at the truth here, okay? What's probably realistic. Joe Biden is in a massive state of decline, just as an individual, right? I feel badly for anybody. My dad went through that before he died. And going through cognitive decline is no picnic. So I feel badly for Joe Biden. I don't believe that Joe Biden is the one pulling the strings on most of this stuff. He's more of a person reading off the teleprompter and pretty much, you know, telling people what the rest of the crowd wants him to hear. I think people like Antony Blinken have a lot more power. He's the Secretary of State. He's also a dual citizenship with Israel. And also some of the other members of the Biden administration are all pro-Zionist, like Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor. A lot of these people just, they see things through a different lens, not from the benefit of the American people, and definitely not from the benefit of the Palestinian people or other people who are from the Islamic world. And they're trying to achieve their goals. And so they're using Biden as sort of a rubber stamp to do what they want to do, making public statements admonishing the Israelis for doing things like indiscriminate bombing, but behind the scenes pretty much saying, do what you got to do. And that's where we are. And that's just been continuing, and that status quo continues. Hopefully there'll be some other pressure brought to bear, but this is symptomatic of such a bigger problem that I talk about a lot, and that is the power structure that's in place. And it affects so many other issues, not just our foreign policy. And this is just another victim of that power structure, is the stranglehold that the interest groups have, and the wealthy class, and the donor state, and the corporations, and the national security apparatus, and the war state, and the media apparatus that cover it all. So it's a bigger fish to fry, and it's going to have to be broken up at some point, or none of these issues are going to get better.
One last question. Do you see the dismantling of AIPAC happening in our lifetime?
I can't, not at the moment. I can't speak for lifetime. I mean, I don't know how long you're going to live, but my lifetime may be a lot shorter. The current inertia is no way. It's only been gaining steam. Maybe because of the ICJ, it might lose a little bit, because some politicians may have to break away because they're like, I can't play for that. But you have to look at the rewards and the risks. These are calculating people who are in office, and they have to do what the game presents to them, not what their heart tells them in many cases. So they get punished if they step out of line, and they get rewarded if they play ball. So like anything, humans we respond to incentives, especially when you're in politics. Good night. So that's what they're doing, and they're just trying to survive, and that's what they have to do to survive. So for the foreseeable future, unless that changes, I don't see the situation changing.
Okay, sorry. Can I just ask one last question? Just one last one, since you brought something up. Has there ever... Oh, hello?
Yeah, don't be sorry. It's okay.
Okay, so have there ever been candidates that were promoted by AIPAC and they won whatever place they're in, and they ended up like switching their tune up? Like they went along with what AIPAC thought they were going to do and then just switched up completely? And
I'm not aware of any. No.
okay, so that's not something common that would happen in that realm.
Think of it this way. So look what's happening right now. AIPAC has announced publicly that they're going to spend $100 million to try to unseat 7 incumbent U.S. congresspeople. So that's a huge commitment of money, and the average spend for a congressional seat is about $3 to $4 million. So they're pledging about 3 or 4 times that for their opponent, and 98% of the time, the person who spends the most money wins the election. So that's hard to go. So again, if you push back against Israel, there's a huge political cost. Plus, they try to label you with all these crazy terms like anti-Semitic and stuff like that. So it's a bad situation right now. We're in a bad spot. And unfortunately, this is not to blame anybody. Americans, it's not our fault, but we're all complicit in allowing this trajectory to continue for so many decades. And here we find ourselves.
Yeah. Very unfortunate. But thank you. I really appreciate you answering my questions.
Pleasure. Thanks for coming up. Have a good
Have
night.
a good one.
See ya. Yeah, I mean, listen, let's face it, the U.S. political system, and a lot in the West as well, it's messed up, right? There's so many strong influences, and the political systems are not accountable to the constituents anymore. They haven't been for a long time, but it's gotten a lot worse. And at least in my country, the United States, you have different things that are institutionalized now, like money as being free speech and corporate personhood, and the inability to get past the stranglehold that, the subsidies that go to corporations. And look at the money right now. The U.S. can spend $120 billion on Ukraine and 14 to 30 billion on Israel, or how much they've given over the years, but they can't help, fix the infrastructure. They can't help relieve student debt. They can't help people get cheaper health care. It's all priorities, and the priorities are all towards the ruling class and the national security state, right? So that's going to require a lot more work than just going to the polls, unfortunately. I talk about that a lot. Let's let Adele come on and talk. How are you doing tonight, and what's happening?
Good Ship. I'm talking to you from Belgium, so I hope you can understand my English a little bit. I'm not used to it. I have some idea. I'm thinking about something. I want to ask your point of view about it. When I see what all happened from 7th of October with Hamas, I see a pattern that you have Iran working with them. So when you see the pattern like in Iraq, Syria, south of Lebanon, Hezbollah, this is all a movement working from Iran. Now you see also the Houthis going against Israel and the Americans there in the at the Red Sea. So maybe there is a big pattern that it's not the religion, but it's more like a political movement from the Shiite. You understand me?
Can you say it one more time? I'm not sure I followed the last thing you said.
So I see a pattern, what is happening from the Shiite. I'm not speaking about religion. It is more the political movement. So I see a pattern going from Iran, maybe and Iraq, Syria, south of Lebanon. They were working with Hamas. Also in Qatar, the leaders of Qatar, of Hamas in Qatar, they have big connections with Iran. So I see a pattern also with the Houthis in Yemen. So maybe I will ask you what's your point of view about that?
Same thing the United States does. So remember that if you're a powerful nation, but you can get your objectives met through third parties, they call that by proxy or proxy wars. So Hezbollah and the Houthi rebels are both funded as proxies by the Iranian government. They send them weapons, they send them money, and they allow them to do their dirty work for them so that they don't have to get their hands dirty and be directly in conflict with the nations or the directives of their foreign policy. Same thing the Americans are doing in Ukraine vis-a-vis Russia. Same exact thing, using another nation state, using their troops, letting them take the risks, you provide the money and arms, and they act on your behalf or towards your interests.
Yes, because I see also a pattern when I see the messages from them. I see a lot of the messages from the parties, we shall say the parties of Hezbollah and so on in all these countries are attacking the Sunni religion part, you know. I see they're attacking each other in this conflict. So my idea is, I think all is organized by Iran, but not only Iran is not a mastermind in it. I think there is a lot of influence from China, from Russia, through Iran. So I think we have to more think about this matter.
Yeah, I mean, the word is, a lot of people try to find, like, what's the answer? In geopolitics, it's always the word and. It's always the word and, meaning that it's this and that and possibly this as well, all kind of playing together and coming to bear from different angles. That's the complexity of geopolitics, and it's all puzzle pieces. And sometimes you think you know what's going to happen with the puzzle, so you see this one piece and you put it over here, but it turns out it's got to go back over here because it doesn't match. You don't have the box cover to look at. So, it's all about calculation too. And a lot of American scholars like Jeffrey Sachs and other people like him are talking about the fact that this is a huge miscalculation by the Israelis and the United States. And what we should be doing is getting along with others and accepting our new role in this sort of fragmented landscape rather than still trying to project the same power that we could do back in 1950, 1960, which we can't do anymore. So
I don't think that Israel made a mistake. I think that Israel knows well enough that there is a problem from where it is coming, and they are using the religion to make their issue, worldwide.
Well, I could say possibly, but I mainly think that the Israelis are trying to establish themselves as a regional power, maintain their power, and further extend their reach, as they always have been doing. And this was a golden opportunity to increase the pace at which they're dispossessing and removing the Palestinian people from land they believe is rightfully theirs. And there's also other geopolitical issues. For example, the resources that are at play there. We talked about different things like the Ben Gurion Canal pathway, which is one possible reason. We have
gas.
So there's other things in play too. It's always the and.
Yes. Okay, I thank you for letting me talk with you. I've been following you for about 3 months when the thing started, so I'm happy to talk to you. But I wanted to share my point of view about it.
Thank you. Good points you made. Thank you very much for doing so.
Okay.
Take care. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, everybody has their interests. Remember that countries act in their national interests. So what Russia did in Ukraine was based on their national interest, not on the individual that made the decisions. You know, a lot of times, I mean, there can be reasons why, in addition to other reasons, that people do things. I mentioned with Netanyahu and the pickle that he's in. So it could be and. But you have to wonder, we talked about this earlier today, how did this really happen? Like, how is it that such a heavily guarded border that seemingly has the greatest protections on earth with the highly sophisticated technology of the Israelis, how did it happen? It's a fair question, right? And who benefited from that? So think of it this way. The new alliances that have sort of formed, and Saudi Arabia is playing both sides right now, let's face it. You've got the United States, Western Europe, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, South Korea. That's one sort of power block, and Japan. And then that's like the Western bloc, so to speak, even though Japan's in the East and so is South Korea. Then you have the competing bloc, which is like Iran, maybe Venezuela, Russia, China. That's sort of the other axis, quote unquote. Now, there's different trade issues that are going on that are a little more complicated that, you know, it's sort of like a bad marriage in some ways, like with the U.S. and China. But ultimately, this stuff's going to come to a head. Let's face it, there's going to be conflict between probably the U.S. and at least China, and you could argue it's going on with Russia right now. So these two events that are happening simultaneously with the war in Ukraine and now this new regional war that may develop in the Middle East, this could be the start of everything that's going to bring all those things to the loggerhead. The U.S. is in what's called late stage empire, which means that their power is waning. They've extended themselves militarily and financially to a point that's unsustainable. And people at home are starting to get pissed off, and they're starting to get marginalized because the money's being spent on people that make the money through these overseas follies. And more people at home are left out. And that creates domestic unrest, and you know how that plays out. So the next person here is Mish. Let's bring up Mish.
Yeah, hello. We actually met at the DC protest. Omar introduced us. We talked for a second before the cops were rushing through about the prolonged how they prolonged the travel from one point or another in the West Bank through the checkpoints.
Yeah.
So it's actually deeper than just prolonging they're economically disenfranchising the Palestinian people, right? So it goes into, you have to work in the West Bank. If you live in the villages are the most valuable assets that we have. They're more valuable than the largest of Palestinian cities, whether it's Hebron, Ramallah. They're the most valuable things that we have because the villages are what they want to take control over. But the way that they do that is, like, they've been doing multiple things other than just the checkpoints where it takes you 4 hours to get to the city to work. And then you could still be told to turn around. You could still be told, you're not going to make it to work today, buddy. You work in a hospital, you work in here. They've done it. We have it documented to the point where they've stopped ambulances at the checkpoints. You know what I mean? Where ambulance is going for a sudden emergency of whether it's an elderly person or somebody injured by the Israelis, and they'll hold them at the checkpoint for 3, 4, 5 hours. And then there's also a few other instances where they compromise our water supplies as well, right? So we understand what's going on with the UN, but how are we gonna get justice for a lot of these, I guess, what we could call microaggressions, right? As they've been actually labeled, microaggressions, where it's small. You're not gonna make it to work today. You think that you caught up, like, we all live in America and we get told about how great this life is. But let's be honest, if any of us is out of work for a week, we're behind for a month.
Yeah, I hear it. It's tragic what's happening in the West Bank. It has been happening forever. And right now it's happening on steroids with settlers coming in and disrupting all sorts of horrible things. For those who don't know, there are checkpoints littered throughout the West Bank. Initially and for security reasons near the border, but they're everywhere now. And if you don't know how this works, you have to pass through sometimes multiple checkpoints to go very short distances. So normally if you and I would hop on the road and, like, say, a 10-minute drive somewhere, that doesn't exist in the West Bank. You have to go through checkpoints that can be just to check your ID and go, or it can be, like you said, as long as 4 hours. Imagine going to work every day, or a business person, and you don't know if it's going to take you 15 minutes or 5 hours. I mean, imagine what that must be like. And sometimes if you don't get back in a certain time, you can't get through the checkpoint at all. So if there's a checkpoint nearest to where you live in your village, they may have rules that say if you're not back there by 7 p.m., nobody goes through. So if you get stuck somewhere else, then you're stuck there and you can't go home at all. So you're stuck in your truck all. This is crazy. So it's an untenable situation. And for Israelis to make comments like, well, look, they haven't developed anything. They don't know how to build stuff. No, it's not that, you dumbass. It's that they don't have the freedom of movement and control of goods to be able to do anything. Plus, they're being harassed 24/7. How could they possibly develop at the same pace as the Israelis? It's impossible. Would you agree with that?
No, of course, it's deeper than they don't build. It's to the point where you can't even get to work a shift. You could have somebody who wants nothing more than to put money, and a young Palestinian who lives in a village that's monitored and ran down on by external forces, because they're invaders at the end of the day. That's what it is. So you live in we want to put money in your pocket, but you can't make it to work. I'm sorry. I would make it to work. You have a job. Make it to work. The job is here for you any day that you could show up. But sometimes you might not be able to show up for a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time. What's that man to do? You know, he can't just hold it for you. He can't hold the position. But then also it goes deeper than that, Chip. They got what? The permits, the building permits alone. What do they deny? Around 97% of Palestinian building permits? Because
If you don't know, if you want to build a house, right, you have to build something, you have to live somewhere. You can apply for a permit. It almost never gets approved. So then what you do is you build anyway, because you've got to live somewhere. And then they come out and they tell you you have to demolish the house. You don't have a permit. But I applied. Well, you don't have a permit. So what you're saying, 97% of the time, if you want to build a home, they don't approve it. So what are you supposed to do? You have kids, they're growing up, they got to live somewhere, right? That's why people live sometimes 20 people to a home, because they demolish the next 2 homes next to them. It's crazy.
exactly. So it's like where is the what are the channels? I'm not sure if the UN and the South Africa case, this is what I'm wrestling with personally, right? What I really want to have an answer to. Where do we get the justice for a lot of these microaggressions that have not just clearly and deliberately have been designed to disenfranchise and impoverish the Palestinian people? They have been designed to do that, to keep them at a far below poverty, third, fourth, fifth class citizen in essentially what is a third world country, right? To keep us at like these below zero levels, right? What are the steps taken to get justice on those crimes?
I mean, sad answer. I've been watching this for 34 years. It's only gotten worse, decade by decade, year by year. And what we're seeing now is the worst of the last 35 years. And, there's nothing right now that external forces can do to change it, as much as we would like to. Right now, the Israelis have the upper hand. They have the backing of the American system, backing of the military. They have political cover at the UN. They have AIPAC lobbying our Congress people. It's sewn up in a nice, neat bow. So what it means is that people who are being subjected to and being exploited by a more powerful army and military and police force are going to continue to be further subjected to that. Now, where does that leave things? What has been done so far that's worked very well is just this slow but steady encroachment on Palestinian territory in the West Bank, and basically going in occasionally and doing massive bombardments and incursions into Gaza. This was like a ticket to get out of jail free for the IDF. They got to go in and completely let loose with no limitations, no proportionality, which is what they're continuing to do. And so this is like a feeding frenzy for the Israeli military and for the Israeli land grab, Zionist operation right now. And it's the worst it's been. So I don't know what to say except for the fact that it's a horror show. And as I said on Turkish TV weeks ago when I did the interview, it's a horror show. My government's supporting it. Therefore, I'm supporting it with taxes, and it needs to end.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right about that. There has to be some kind of accountability. There has to be they have to acknowledge that wrongdoing was done, and they don't. There are 2 last things I wanted to point out. There are 2 quotes, right? One from Benjamin Netanyahu and one from David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, right? So David Ben-Gurion had said, right, and this is from his personal diary, and I mean, a lot of the prime ministers and a lot of notable Jewish figures as well have been known to keep very meticulous diaries. So this is from David Ben Gurion's personal diary. It was released by some sort of Israeli organization years ago. He had said, "I have been meditating on the long chain of false incidents and hostilities we have invented, and on many clashes we have provoked, which cost us so much blood, and on the violations of the law by our men, all of which brought grave disasters and determined the whole course of events and contributed to the security crisis." So he had basically stated that we have manufactured and designed some of these hostile environments that they have created to create hostilities. Netanyahu also said recently, he said, this is just 2 years ago in his criminal investigation, he said this to Israeli police. He said, "We have neighbors who are our bitter enemies. I send them messages all the time. These days, right now, I mislead them, destabilize them, mock them, and then hit them over the head. It's impossible to reach an agreement with them. Everyone knows this, but we control the height of the flames." That they have said multiple times. There's also multiple other instances where they insinuate that, look, we're fanning the flames. We need the Palestinians to strike. We have to piss them off just enough where they fight for the most basic of human rights. When we catch the Palestinians fighting or doing something violent, I'm not saying we never do, but you'll see this guy is fighting for water. This guy just watched his trees, his entire livelihood get chopped down. This guy just had his home taken away from him. And they're fighting for the absolute most basic of human rights. But they've said time and time again that, look, man, we're going to piss them off and we're going to make them attack our people, right? And then when they attack our people, we're going to rain hell on them. It's part of this endless cycle. What are the chances that they take accountability for them inciting violent incidents against their own people, essentially using the people as cannon fodder? That's the last thing. Oh, I can't hear you.
You've brought up all sorts of good points. The problem is, again, it's what about the solution, right? And right now there isn't an answer. That's the frustrating thing for everybody. We march, we stop buying Starbucks, we don't go to McDonald's, we, call our congressman, we scream and yell from the top of the hills, we advocate here on social media, we get repressed, we get our, downplayed. It's a very, very bad set of circumstances, all of which add up to probably the status quo being maintained, at least until something external changes. And that it's not, I don't see anything changing, which is the sad part. It's symptomatic of a much bigger problem, like I keep saying. And so we either going to address the bigger problem or more of these things are going to continue down a bad path for. And by the way, it's easy to look the other way when it doesn't affect you directly, right? So right now it's the Palestinian people that are taking it on the chin. But what about when your neighbor or your family starts to get affected by some of the same negative aspects of these bad systems? Then you pay attention. But the question is it too late to make a change at that point? So it's sad. Thank you for raising those points. And I wish I had better answers.
I think now everybody is being affected though. Like BDS is essentially criminalized. And they're showing us that, all right, we don't care about your they're showing us slowly that we don't care about your freedoms. We don't care about you advocating for someone fighting for water on their own land. We don't care about that. We don't care if you boycott, if you join BDS in Texas, if you're a teacher, if you're this, if you're part of these main organizations, you will lose your job. That's it. That there's contracts right now in place that if you join BDS in any level, that you're fired. So I think they've showed us that they don't necessarily like the veil of what they're calling freedom. It's lifting, and I think they're slowly exposing themselves where now people are understanding that, all right, we're all technically Palestinian. We just live a prettier life than the rest of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, great.
But I really appreciate everything that you do. It was nice meeting you the other day, brother. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for everything.
Awesome. Thanks for coming up. Really
Gotcha,
appreciate it.
brother.
Good luck with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a crazy world we live in right now, and it's not so good for Palestinians, and it hasn't been. The thing that impresses me the most about Palestinians who live in the occupied territories or Gaza is their sheer will and determination to just endure whatever comes their way and stay strong. It's unbelievable to me. I just don't understand how they can suffer that badly and then just stay resolute. And I think it comes down to two things. One is their historical ties to the land is very strong, and their faith is literally off the radar. And so they look at each struggle, and any loss and pain and suffering is just another step towards freedom. And it's as tragic as it is, it's a necessary step in the struggle. So yeah, and the good news is, again, I know I've talked about a lot of negative stuff. Let's talk about a couple positive things. So We talked about this earlier. There has never been in the history of this conflict more people focusing in on it. That's a good thing. And there's never been more people made aware of more of what the Israeli side, the Zionists, put it that way, are willing to do and actually do to be absolutely cruel and barbaric in their actions and behavior. Yes, they say one thing publicly, but then they do another thing in terms of their behavior, and we're seeing it on social media. That's why they're going out of their way to try to stop things like what we're talking about right here, right? This is not welcome. And ideally, they'd like to have it off of here, right? But people are seeing it. And when you see images of little kids and women being pancaked inside of buildings and there's nobody near who looks like a bad guy, it makes you angry, right? It makes you upset. Like, why in the world are they doing this stuff? And the answer is because they can, because no one has stopped them. There's been no accountability for many decades. They can do whatever the hell they want. The U.S. has provide cover, unbeknownst to most U.S. citizens. They don't even knew this stuff. They didn't know anything about it before October 7th. Somebody asked me to give a little 2-second, spiel on how I know about this stuff. So I'll tell you. So I didn't come to learn about this on October the 7th. Okay, I learned about this in 1989, totally by accident. I was a college student in my senior year. One of my classmates did a presentation on what was called the First Intifada, which was a big uprising that took place in the occupied territories. It was a big deal. And so she did a presentation on what the backstory was. And I was like shocked because I didn't know what the backstory was. I didn't know what the Gaza Strip was. So I'm somebody who's always followed geopolitics, but especially this issue because I thought it was incredibly unfair and it was very interesting to me. And I've sort of read a lot of books and studied a lot about it. And so I just happened to simultaneously get on social media like 2 days before this thing happened. Just total luck. And so I was able to talk about stuff that I knew something about. And some other stuff that I talk about, like the whole corporate structure and all the problems with, money and politics and all the stuff that we all know is sort of a problem. So that's my background. I'm an Army veteran too, so I understand combat and all the negative stuff that goes on with that. Just have perspective, right? And that couple that with the fact that I try to be objective and I try to take both sides into account. A lot of people say I'm not, but I'm really not pro-Palestinian. Not that I don't love Palestinian people. I love Jewish people. There's nothing about the people I do or don't like. It's the dynamics. The power dynamic is an exploitative Zionist political settler ideology that had a positive goal of establishing a safe place for Jewish people. I'm all down for that. But I'm not down for the negative consequences that implementation had for others. And what's been happening since then has been horrific. And I understand people want to maintain things for their own benefit. I get that, but you don't have to necessarily put your finger in the wound of somebody as violently as the Israelis have chosen to do over the decades. And I just take issue with it. I think it's unfair. I think it's unjust, and I think it needs to be talked about. And I'm not the only one, right? You have authors like Norman Finkelstein and Noam Chomsky, and you have people inside of Israel. Author Ilan Pappé, who's from Israel, he's a Jewish historian and talks about this. And there's a lot of people. We had 2 people on today that were former Zionists that have stepped up as Jewish people and said, "Hey, this is wrong. I was brought up a certain way to think a certain way, and now that I've understood everything, this is wrong." And all the question you have to ask is this: is a very simple deal breaker. Ready? Would you want these things to be happening to you and your family? That's all you got to ask. Don't let the person change the subject to the Holocaust or, they're taking the money from cotton. No, F all that. Would you want to be the person this is happening to? Yes or no? That's all you got to ask. And of course, the answer is no. So they have to deflect, they have to lie, obfuscate, the whole story. So, okay, a couple more people want to come up. We have Shaman, and then we have Abu and Lena. Oops, I just muted you by accident.
Are we going in a specific order?
If you can see the screen, I'm just going from bottom to top as people come in, just to be
Okay.
fair.
Okay.
And please wait your turn if you don't mind. I mean, interrupting makes it really tough to talk. So please, what would you like to talk about?
Me, it's in regards to the rulers of the land.
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, like who would be the king of Palestine right now?
Well, when you say the king of Palestine, okay, let's distinguish between what is a nation state and what is a people within a territory. So let's go back to 1947. Okay, there was no state of Israel. There was no state of Palestine. Okay, it was a region and a territory. So if you want confirmation of that, don't believe me. I'm sure you've heard of somebody. This is a yes/no question. Have you heard of somebody by the name of Golda Meir?
Polish. Can we go back a year before on 1946?
Well, we can, but let's cover the ground that I just asked you. Do you know somebody by the name of Golda Meir? Ever heard of that person?
No, it wouldn't be hard to pull up with it.
Well, no. So in other words, if you have access to the computer right now, please, if you can, please visit YouTube And then YouTube has like a search window, right? So please, when you get there, let me know and I'll share with you what to type in.
But just go for it.
So are you there at YouTube now?
Yeah, go for it.
So in the search box, type in Golda Meir, MEIR, and type in I'm a Palestinian. And there's like a 1 minute or a 30-second video you can watch that shows you what she says. And just to save you the time, if for the audience who's not going to see it, I'm paraphrasing, but she's in an interview with a British interviewer on TV. And he's talking to her about, tell us about your life. What was happening before you became prime minister and what happened in the lead up to the state of Israel. And she's explaining to him, he's saying, well, you weren't Palestinian, right? She's like, no. I lived in this area, and from here to there, this is considered Palestine. I'm a Palestinian. I carried a Palestinian passport from 1921 to 1948. I'm a Palestinian. Now, those are the words of a prime minister of Israel, and yet people to this day will say there's no such thing as Palestine. Tell me the king of Palestine. Tell me this, these types of things. I don't know if that's the direction you're going in, Shannon, but this debunks that by the words of an actual Israeli leader.
Can I just ask a question if you don't mind, Chip?
Well, let me ask this: are you finished, Shaman, or do you want to talk about something in addition?
Oh yeah, like I'm gonna listen to this. It's gonna be fun. I was gonna ask about the square miles of each location. Do you know the square miles of Palestine as it is? Do you know the square miles of Israel?
Are you talking about the territory that's
Yeah, the actual landmass.
I don't know the square miles. I could look it up. Do you know the number?
Yeah, I can rattle them off. So Palestine has a square mile of around 6,000 square miles, and with a population of around 5 million. Israel has a square mile of around 22,000 square miles, with a population of around 9.3 million. And Jordan, which is just next to it, has a square mile landmass of 89,000 square miles, with only a population of around roughly 11 million. So you do the math on what you want.
Well, but by saying those things, are you trying to make a broader point?
Yeah, I'm ensuing that you guys are fighting over BS. Because
you say you guys, can you refer to what you mean?
Yeah, BS. Because when we're saying you guys, you involve yourself in regards to you are involved with your government. You don't like that your government is pushing this narrative and they're using your tax dollars to go ahead and fight these things. Well, whatever they're fighting is complete BS. If you're going to stick to a fundamental faith-based narrative, which you ensued because you say that they're such a faith-driven people. They have such faith in their character. Why do they have such faith? Why do they alhamdulillah on everything? They're not educated.
Can I jump in and answer some of the questions? I don't want to interrupt you, but I was hoping to have a chance to respond.
Go for it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so first of all, I don't think that people are uneducated. I think that's an overgeneralization because there's plenty of Palestinian people who are doctors and lawyers and all sorts of amazing people that are, very talented people. I think to say that is a little bit obtuse, to say the least. Second of all, in terms of my siding with anything in this, what I'm against is, and I hope you are too, whenever I see a bomb, regardless of the narrative, when I see a bomb leave an aircraft and it lands on a civilian structure and 20, 30, 40 people who are not directly involved in conflict get smashed and blown up, I'm against that. Most people I think would be, especially if there's children and women. And when I say my tax dollars, what I mean is when I see a video of a munition dropping that's not guided, that hits a civilian structure and causes that type of damage, whether it's directed at one or two combatants and the other people are collateral damage, or whether it's just the people that are damaged, I don't believe in that as an individual, of that harm being done to anybody, whether it's Palestinian, Israeli, Yemeni, Ethiopian. It doesn't matter who the target is. It's about human life and about the decency of the action.
But again, you said that the nation pretty much rules the people.
I'm not sure what you said. You said you guys and the nation. These are sort of generic terms that I'm not sure to whom you're referring.
To the generic term, like nation leaders are going to make the decision for the general population of that nation which it is being led by.
That's fair. Yeah.
So at this point in time, you're being led by your American government, and your American government is doing these atrocious acts that you condemn.
No, they're supporting a regime that's in charge right now of the Israeli government that is doing the atrocious things through their military.
Okay, and then you counter that by saying that it is not self-defense, while the Israeli propaganda machine saying that this is all in defense.
Well, the idea behind it is my understanding of what the Israeli government is saying is they're saying that in the military operations that they've taken on, they're saying that it's totally required for their self-defense from what happened on October 7th to make sure it doesn't happen again. Most people looking from the outside in, including myself, would look at those statements and say that they're incongruent with what's happening on the territory. I'll give you a specific example. So we know that the H group primarily operates out of a tunnel-based system because they've built it for a reason. So if this were to happen, they had another way of operating to be free from harm. They're not dumb. Even though they're not, you don't believe they're educated. Believe it or not, some of the engineering that's been done in these tunnels is world class. It's pretty impressive, whether you agree with it or not. Having said that, it's going to make very little sense, if no sense, that a bunch of H group militants who just finished attacking a neighboring nation state are going to sit in a 12-story residential building and wait for a bomb to drop on their head. I don't know about you, but if I was an H group member, I would be somewhere else, knowing that the opposing military is doing this. Therefore, for the Israeli government to claim that they're going after these particular people in all these instances and that they're leafleting first and warning people, and out of their good graces, they're doing all these things, which in most cases aren't happening, unfortunately. I wish they were. They're causing tremendous damage to a number of civilians, way out of proportion with the number of civilians that were harmed on the 7th. I mean, the numbers are indisputable, right? Whether it's 15,000, 20, 25, there was about maybe, let's just say maximum 1,300 people, which is horrific, right? Soldiers and civilians, I agree with that. However, the proportionality is out of control. And also our own president said, and this is Joe Biden, right? These aren't my words. He told Benjamin Netanyahu, you need to stop doing indiscriminate bombing of civilians in Gaza. I don't know how you can make it any more clear than that. It's not just my opinion, it's what's happening. So no, I don't think that's defending oneself. Going after the people who perpetrated the crime is defending yourself, which is fair enough. But under international law, if you look at the broader context, these people have been blockaded and under siege, which is an act of war. And the people who they identify with in the West Bank, even though there's some political differences, also happen to identify with an occupation. So they've been under military occupation, an act of war, and under a siege blockade, an act of war. Therefore, they have the right to legitimately resist. I'm not saying I approve the tactics, but I understand the context within which it happens. So no, it's not self-defense when you're bombing civilians and you're not going after the perpetrators of the crime. That's my opinion.
It's loose. It's loose at best, because I'm telling you, from how you're explaining it, from how it's being portrayed, from how everything is seen, if you wanna be like a racehorse and cover both sides of your eyes and just look straight, you'll have the biggest tunnel vision in regards to this subject. But if you actually understand and you acquire the knowledge in regards to this, how most people in these places that we're talking about are fundamentally just involved with their religion, and this is all faith based. And if you can separate the faith by a secular reasoning, you might be able to move ahead. But
well, listen, I really appreciate your advice. I wanted to ask you a fair question, and that is, I'll share with you mine first. So I always like to ask people, how did you come to know what your take is on an issue? So obviously I have my take, you have yours, yours is what it is. How did you arrive at the things you're sharing and the way you see this? What were the things you became aware of, and how did that come to be?
Probably Halloween's. Probably Halloween's as a little kid and running around with a little UNICEF box around your neck and trying to ask for donations. Be starting young, trying to ask questions of what was going on.
No, what I mean is we're discussing a conflict that has very specific tenets to it. I'm trying to give you a best I can an analysis based on what I've done. So what analysis have you done specifically, for how long and in what method, to come to the points that you're raising?
Yeah, probably since 1992. It's about 6 years old, man. I'm just
Well,
always asking questions about what was going on, and it started way before October 7th, like you're saying.
well, what I'm trying to determine, and I'm not trying to come down on you for this. I'm just trying to ask you. I can tell you what I've done. So I
Oh,
learned
how
about
about
the
this?
conflict.
How about
Give me.
this will answer your
Hold on. Listen, I'm trying to be as polite as I can because I'm being very patient with you because you've said some pretty condescending things during the conversation, coming across as somebody who feels he knows a lot about A, what I should be saying or doing, and B, where you've learned about it. So let me share with you what I've learned about it, and then if you want to come back and share that, I'd love to hear you say it. So I first learned about this in 1989. I'm 56 years old, so you don't want to hear the old person argument, but you'll learn as you get older that people who have age have had a chance to learn more stuff. Hopefully, if you keep your eyes open. And I've studied this very, very, very carefully and at great length for many, many decades. So the question is, that's how I've arrived at the place I am. I have no reason to you talk about horse racing, right? I have no reason to pick a horse because I'm not from Israel. I don't know anyone who lives in Israel. I'm not from Palestine. I don't know anyone who lives in Palestine. I have no real reason to take a side. In fact, as I always like to say, just for your knowledge, if you've seen me before, if this was a different conflict with the exact flip script, where there was an Arab nation that was partitioned out of an area that had been shared by different people for many generations, and one group got marginalized, which in this case would be Jewish people, and they were scattered throughout the region, and they were further marginalized by the Arab state. Occasionally, the Jewish militants fought back as best they could, but it didn't work out. There was no path to peace because every time the Arab state offered the Jewish people a deal, it was not free from Arab control of the Jewish state, even though it was technically a deal, but it wasn't a good deal. And then there was a recent attack by a strong set of Jewish militants that went into the territory of the Arab government, and they inflicted some significant harm. And then the Arab government subsequently did what's happening right now. I would condemn the Arab government for what they're doing because it is disproportionate and it is in keeping with a pattern of behavior that's contrary to international law. That's how I've gotten to where I am now. How about if you share with the audience how your Halloween and your other UNICEF endeavors got you to where you are?
same little piece of the sandbox. But my question would be to you to answer all this. Do you personally? Do you
No,
believe?
I just asked you a simple question. You're avoiding it. So just
Do you,
give it some kind of an answer, and then I'll be happy to hear what you have to say next.
yeah.
Please.
Do you believe in God?
Please answer the question that I asked you. I gave you a very specific sort of backstory to where I came from and how I learned. So I'm just asking for you, going trick or treating and having a UNICEF box on your head doesn't give you contextual information about the dynamics of the Israel-Palestine conflict since 1948. So just share with you how you got to where you are, because you're sharing.
I know what you're talking about, man. It has everything to do, man. You have to learn about World War II. You have to learn about what was the settlement like in 1947 in regards to like the British Empire, in regards to the UN, in regards to now it being took over by the US. Like, why do they have the defense that they have, the Israeli Defense Force that they have? Like, there's more to it. But my
Well,
question is, do you believe in God? Yes or no?
that's way off
Simple.
the subject right now. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Listen, I've given you a lot of time, and I was really hoping to hear an answer about more specifics. I think everybody here knows the history of World War II and the projection of American power. Again, I was talking specifically since 1948. You never really got there, so I appreciate you coming on and sharing with me that you think I'm not seeing it correctly. We'll see how it plays out. I think if you were to read resources like, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, for example, not written by me or not written by a Palestinian, but written by
Oh,
Israeli Jewish scholar. Hold on, let me
little
finish.
kids.
Hold on. Listen, I'm not going to ask you questions about your belief system because it's not germane to what we're talking about. Whether I do or don't believe in a deity doesn't affect the political analysis of this
That's why
situation.
you're Christian.
Hold on. Okay, listen.
Right now,
I hate to have to do this. So, listen, no offense, but if somebody were to ask my opinion to and analyze what you just said to somebody like me, who I've tried to be, not arrogant about it, but I have invested a ton of my time, and I'm not a dumbass. For you to come onto a program like this and speak in sort of an unarticulative way with all sorts of references that don't make any sense and don't come in a cohesive manner, and then you refuse to answer questions about how you got to where you are and why you're advising me as such, listen, it's third grade level stuff at best. And I don't want to be rude to anybody, but it was not up to par. So my point to you is this: if you want to educate yourself and have an articulable conversation, I'm all for that. But asking people what they believe in, it doesn't matter what I believe in. Okay, and I tried to listen. I gave you plenty of time to hear you out, and I asked multiple times to come with the goods, basically, and you came back with a UNICEF box. So, anyway, that was unfortunate because I would have liked to keep talking more, but it just never went anywhere. Okay, let me bring up some. So we have Abu back on here. Let's see, Abu, please come up and say
Good
hi.
night, Chip. Good night, everyone.
Okay.
All right, so I'm from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean.
Yep.
Just a little background. I co-host the only pro-Palestinian live in my country and probably in the Caribbean area. I've been pro-Palestinian for the past 20 years. I've spoken on national television in 2014 for the last conflict. And since then, I've been an organizer for solidarity marches and other events that support the Palestinian cause and the freedom of the Palestinian people. I'm also of Lebanese origin, and that is how I got into this Palestinian issue. I always looked at the news as a young boy, and I saw the Palestinian issue, and immediately I know that it was injustice. My following of that issue led me to accepting Islam. So thank God for that. And I've been steadfast in my activities towards helping to free the people of Palestine. So that's just a little background on me. I just wanted to start by saying that guy before was a total bigot and made a lot of condescending remarks towards Muslims and Arab people. Anyway, so this whole issue in the Middle East for me has a lot to do with geopolitics and very little to do with religion. The Israeli colony, I'll call it that, is an American empire outpost and military base, in my opinion. So that's their benefit to the United States of America, to protect their interests in the Middle East. And then Israel depends on the American government for diplomatic cover and for funding their expansion in that region, right? And I'm going to say that we could never look towards the United States government for any help with this issue or for any positive resolution with regards to the freedom of the Palestinian people in their right to self-determination. It will be shooting themselves in their feet, for if they help the Palestinian people, because what we are seeing now, it's everyone for themselves, and with the decline of the American empire, especially with the creation of the BRICS nations, the American empire is grasping at straws because they know that they are on the decline and they are looking to maintain the territory that they control, and they are not going to let go of it that easily. So they are going to defend Israel down to the last until probably they see it's all doom and gloom, and then at that point they may choose to back off and defend themselves. With regards to Iran and their proxies, it's also the same situation because the Western world, along with Israel, their aim is to get rid of Iran. Iran is viewed as a cancer in that part of the world for them, and a hindrance, an impediment to their expansionist policies. So Iran knows this, and therefore they as well will do all that they have to do to defend their territory and prevent this coalition from the West and from Israel from gaining new territory. So it's a lot of geopolitics, and I mean, religion has very little to do with it. It has a lot to do for some people, but in the grand scheme of things, it's all geopolitics and imperialism, capitalism at its best. All right, and that's what I get out of the situation.
By the way, can I have your permission? What you just said was excellent, and it was a great synopsis, and I'd like to clip it and put it into a YouTube short so that people can see such a concise summary. Is that okay with you?
No problem at all.
Yeah, that was very well said.
One thing I'd like to say again. Sorry, Chip. Sorry.
That was very well said. I just want to compliment you.
Appreciate it, buddy. One thing I'm going to say again is that 99.99999% of wars are not fought for human rights and in the name of humanity. So don't ever think that these wars are fought because we feel sorry for another people and we want them to have self-determination, we want them to live. This is absolutely false. So we need to do what is right as the civilian population of the world. Keep pushing, keep exposing the truth, because the truth will set us free, even if we speak the truth against ourselves. Let us be truthful and not be like the Zionist regime who spew total lies and propaganda 24/7, 365 days of the year. All right?
Yeah.
Chip, I appreciate you. I don't want to take too long. I want everyone to get a chance and opportunity to voice their opinions. I love you guys. Keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you so much. I just followed you back. Excellent points. I loved it. By the way, if you don't mind emailing me through my link tree or even contacting me back on my messages, I'd like to have you back on to a longer form conversation if you're open to it.
Sure thing.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That was a great contribution. I mean, yeah, it's always so nice when you hear somebody who's articulate and knowledgeable, and it can put together the right words in the right order. And unlike the previous person that came on, that this person was just very to the point and was talking substantive, which I really appreciate. And even if they came on and articulated a very pro-Israeli position in the same manner, I would compliment them in the same way. Seriously, it's not about the position and siding with me. It's about the style and the approach and the knowledge, basically, right? Okay, the next person is going to be Lena. Please come on, Lena, and welcome.
Hey, Chip. I've obviously been here a few times. A happy New Year to you. I hope you're doing well, and thank you for having me. I am not sure if I told you before, I am 100% Palestinian, and I do have a home in the West Bank. So when you say you don't know anyone in the West Bank, you're lying because you know me. So no. We're here 100 days later. And I always like to say, I don't like to say this, but it's 100 days plus 75 years. Okay. This isn't something new. We've dealt with this for many, 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 many years. The one thing that I wanted to address, I was actually going to say in the comments, I try to kind of give myself a break on the weekends, but I just wanted to address him for a couple things. He came up and he said, who was the president of the United States? I'm sorry, what am I saying? The United States. Who was the president of Palestine, right? And to me, I'm just thinking, who was the president of Israel? I mean, who was the president? I mean, don't come at me with that. Was there a president of Israel? And then the whole, the comments of, they're just not educated. I don't even want to begin to tell you what my family consists of, physicians and lawyers and pharmacists, but that's okay. We're uneducated, and he sounded extremely educated. I really wanted to know what his education was, but I'm not going to dwell on him too long. I just wanted to say, as far as the West Bank goes, yeah, we're focused on Gaza. Yes, we're focused on this massacre and this ethnic cleansing. Yes, we are, right? We are. But the West Bank is so shadow banned. And if you thought that there was a brutal occupation before October 7th, you guys have no idea what's happening now. Even what you see and what you read is nothing to what's happening. It's so brutal. When I say brutal, any home they feel like entering, they destroy. Any home they feel like removing people, they can. And like you said, why, Chip? Because they can. No one's there to stop them. And before it was just kind of I want to say they were being nice from checkpoint to checkpoint with rocks. But now it's Hunger Games on steroids, if you guys know what that movie is. If you watch, it literally is Hunger Games. People they don't know if when they leave their home, if they're gonna go back to their children alive. And I'm not gonna monologue, but please, you guys, just the West Bank is just, my heart is broken for them. They are so terrorized. And like you said, they're the strongest people if anyone can handle this occupation, it's them. It's the Palestinians. And that's what's frustrating Israel so much, Chip, because they're like, these damn Palestinians. They are not surrendering no matter what we do. No matter what we do to them, they're still standing. How dare they?
Yeah, it's amazing how resolute they are, and I'm just so impressed and taken aback by it. And again, that's why it doesn't matter how many people you unalive. The spirit of a resistance movement of a people never goes away unless all the people are gone. There's just no way to do it. So, and I don't think that's going to be practical. You have 2.3 million people in the Gaza Strip. You have over 3.5 million people in the West Bank. And yes, it's egregious what's happening now. That's not even a good enough word to describe it. And I call it, it's occupation on steroids right now. That's what I've been calling it. And the settlers are more emboldened than ever, and they're doing things under the protection of the IDF. They're carrying their own weapons. They're unaliving people. They're taking their property. They're doing the in-home raids, home destruction, home burning, destruction of crops. The whole litany of things that they've been doing for decades, but just at a much faster pace.
It's going to drop, but thank you always for having me, and thank you for always having one of the best platforms on this. I mean, one of the best live streams on this platform. I really appreciate you.
Thank you very much. That's high praise. I appreciate that. And I hope that those who are in the West Bank and in Gaza get some relief from this chaos and this hell they're enduring. Because as I said before, it needs to end. I don't care who's being persecuted this way. It needs to stop. Right? All right, real quickly, I know we're going to get some other guests on. Thanks for your patience. You've been waiting. Real quick before you come up, I just want to do one quick thing for housekeeping, and that is to let people know who I am and what I do. So my name is Chip Barnes. I'm a geopolitical, analyst, I guess is the best way to say it, because I'm not a news guy. But I basically like to talk about all sorts of issues, much like one person before who was from, I think they said they were from the Caribbean nations down there. I talk about things from that vantage point. I analyze things. I try to be straight down the middle as best I can, and I don't always get it right. But I'm not married to my opinion to the extent that if other information comes up, you incorporate that and you make a different conclusion, which is the right thing to do. I want to let people know that I normally go live here on TikTok every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And then every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, I go live from 12 noon Eastern Time to 2 p.m. Today is an exception. I couldn't go Friday. I wasn't feeling well. And then yesterday was the march in DC, and I get very spotty cell phone service, so I couldn't do one. So I figured I'd go on today and do catch up for people. I try to run a very neat and tidy ship here as best I can. So I like to have people take turns and not interrupt each other. I don't know if you've watched certain lives, but the ones that are sort of like the Jerry Springer show, I find them very hard to follow, and they're very unpleasant, and no one has consensus. It's name calling and yelling, and that's not what I like to do. So I'll give you respect if you have a different point of view. Like I gave that person with whom I probably differ 180 degrees plenty of airtime, asked a couple of general ways to frame things differently, and how he came and just didn't really go anywhere. So I hoped it would, because I really wanted to hear. But trick-or-treating is not how most people learn about this issue, quite frankly.
No.
Anyway, so... And one more thing before I shift back to the guest. I have a list of links in my link tree, and it's just a little link in my bio that says link tree. If you're outside the US, they have disabled that function on my homepage, whatever you call it. So if you go there, it actually is written out in the notes section. It says Linktree/Chip Barnes. You have to type that into a web browser if you're outside the US. If you're inside the US, the kind people at TikTok have not taken it down yet, and that you can click on it, and a list of all of the social media that I have, the different Telegram groups that I've created for people to participate in, as well as some ways to contribute. Just to let you know, if you contribute via TikTok, which is much appreciated, they keep 70%, which I think is high, right? I think anybody would think that. If you contribute through the links that I've provided through my link tree, which is like Venmo, Cash App, Patreon, Zelle, and PayPal, they take a little slice, but not much. So if you're going to give, please do there. I'm full-time doing this with no income other than, a smidge here. And there have been some very generous people that have made donations, which I really appreciate. Thank you so much. If you've missed any portion of this live, or the one I did earlier today, which was over 5 hours, they're archived on my YouTube and my Rumble channels. Rumble is basically the same thing as YouTube, it's just a different company. And those go up usually within a few hours of this happening. Soon I'm going to start doing it differently, though. Not only am I going to be giving those videos, the recordings, first to my patrons, my Patreon people. They'll get them like 2 days early, then they'll go on YouTube. But also, I'm going to start doing separate live sessions just from my private audience on specific issues, because they're helping out. So I've been doing this 6 days a week for 2.5 months, 12 hours a week, 15, 20 hours a week, whatever it's been. And at some point, like anybody who works, you got to eventually figure out a way to make it all work. So for those of you who've been loyal followers, thank you so much. I'm not trying to punish you for following me. It's just that eventually I got to figure something out, right, like everybody else. So, but if some wealthy benefactor who's watching this from Qatar wants to write a check, which everyone accuses me of anyway. But if you want to do that, then I don't have to charge anybody. So that's open too. No, I'm just kidding, of course. So let's let the next guest talk. I just want to say thank you to my moderators who are here, Em and I forget the first name, but doing a great job. I really appreciate the help. Couldn't do it without you. Next guest, please.
Hi, Chip.
Hi.
As you can tell, I'm a Brit from my accent. I've come up. I wanted to kind of follow on from what Abu was saying previously with regards to geopolitics. Now, I'm a humanitarian. You know, I believe in humanity. I don't have. That's it. That's my bottom line. Obviously, I know all about the conflict, etc. But I think what my question is I'm trying to educate myself a little bit more on the geopolitics with regards to the UK. So obviously, it came as a bit of a. In the UK, obviously, our government support Israel. What I can say, I'm not speaking for all of us, but in the UK, there is a huge demographic that do not support our own government with regards to the Israel-Palestine conflict. And to be honest, most of us support Palestine. We don't follow or agree with what our government is doing. And I think it came as quite a shock the other day when obviously the UK joined with America to attack Yemen. And I just wanted to know what I don't speak as educated as Abu, but I wanted to know what your take is on the fact that the UK has involved itself with regards to Yemen and how you think it might. I feel there's an ulterior motive, I suppose is what I'm saying, when it comes to Palestine, Israel, etc. And I wondered what your take was.
Well, I'm going to bring in, thank you for the question. It's an interesting question. So I'm going to bring in the words of another foreign leader who you're probably going to be surprised that I mentioned his name, but he is one president of Russia by the name of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So he talks about the leadership of both the American government as well as the other nation states with whom are aligned with America. And what he says is he sees the other nation states as what are called vassal states, where they pretty much go along with whatever the American government says to do. I see the Prime Minister of the UK, Rishi Sunak. If you don't know his background, he comes from an investment.
I know his
He's
background.
the ultimate spoiled rich kid, weird,
Yeah.
awkward, strange, can't see past the $10 million yacht that he sits on, that kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
He's a complete D-bag. He went to visit a local shop where there was people working behind the counter, and he asked them if they were, this is how unrelatable he is. He asked them
you don't need to tell me.
he asked them if they were interested in getting involved in banking.
I know.
This is somebody who's working like a working class person who probably doesn't even know what the banking industry is, not to put them down, but he's so out of touch with the everyday person. He can't even just have normal conversation. He's in that world of finance and high wealth. The same problem that's befallen the United States has befallen most of the Western world. Australia, Germany, the United States are all messed up by corporate and large money. Money has completely polluted the political environment in the West. It's that plus militarism. You add those two together and you have this sickening thing of people that are acquiesced to the power structure, and they only rise through the ranks if they're willing to play within that framework. And anybody who's quote unquote good for the people gets completely destroyed. Very rarely does one even make it in. And if they do make it in, they don't stay long because they're not willing to play within the rules of the game. And so that's the same thing that's happened in the UK. The UK is pretty much going lockstep just since Tony Blair and the UK did with the Iraq War. Same thing with Rishi Sunak and even Boris Johnson before him, because he was the lackey that was sent to Ukraine to stop the peace deal there. They're all cut from the same rich cloth, and especially the Tories, who are the worst possible people in the world. I hate to say it. They are bad people that care about the wealthy class and the donor class, not the working class.
I agree. Yeah.
So they're going to go along with the U.S. and partner in whatever they can militarily, because the U.S. they're kind of like two criminals in the same bag together.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, I feel for people in the United States like myself and others who are frustrated that we can't make this change, and same thing in the UK and elsewhere. It's because the same power dynamics have a lock on the political scene, and that's going to have to be broken. It's going to be tough. It's going to probably be near impossible, but it's got to, if there is a chance for things to change, that's what's going to happen. Okay, we have Ahmed Khan, I think it is. Ahmed Khan. Are you there? Did I mute you or unmute you? There you go. Sorry about that.
So, Ahmed Kamal.
Hi.
Thank you very much for having me for the second time. I really enjoy your live.
Thank you.
You said during this live that you are not pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. You're just thinking straight about what is happening, and you're having your say on it. You also said that there was no Israeli state and there was no Palestinian state, but at the same time, you referred to the video of Golda Meir when she was saying that she is Palestinian. So please elaborate on this point.
Okay.
If you were referring to the Ottoman state, since Palestine was part of it, please elaborate more. This is my first question. My second question. Now, I don't know what's the English word for, when you let science rule the state instead of religion. What's the word? What's the English word for that?
Well, there's secular versus religious. Secular.
Okay. Now, the Western culture, the Western world is going towards that direction where science is ruling and not faith. So how is the Western world is so pro, and when I mean the Western world, I mean the governments. How is the Western world so pro-Israel when Israel itself was established based on faith, based on religion? Because
Yeah. Please
so
finish. I don't interrupt you.
yes. So how are they pro-Israel where they don't believe in faith, and at the same time, Israel is established based on faith?
Well, to some extent and not to some extent. So there are people who were cheering on the establishment of a Jewish state who happen to believe a more long-term interpretive stance based on the Torah obviously on the Talmud, that the land was given to them out of King David by God to the Jews. And there are some people, but if you look at the impetus for how the state was created, it was driven by a different group of people who used different tactics to create the establishment. So you had, the original founder of the movement of Zionism was Theodor Herzl. Now, he worked on it primarily from 1897 until his death in 1904, after which Chaim Weizmann took the torch. And it was a process of building consensus and support for the establishment of a Jewish homeland. Initially, there was different places that were thought about, like maybe Uganda and Africa, maybe in South America and Argentina, but eventually it was decided upon the target was going to be Palestine. And what happened between the end of World War I and the Ottoman Empire breaking up and the British Mandate of Palestine, the population shift, there was a big population shift. And believe it or not, demographics make a big difference in terms of the dynamics in a culture. There was a Palestinian territory at the time. It was referred to by everybody going back to the Romans as Palestine. That was sort of the collection of tribes and communities that made up that territory or region. Remember, there weren't formal nation states until recent history. The lines that are drawn today have not been around for that long. So in terms of human history, they're very recent. Just because the territory isn't delineated by borders and formalized in a nation state doesn't mean it doesn't have legitimacy as a territory with culture and institutions and commerce and all the things that go with being in community in terms of society. But getting back to the thing that happened, this is the big change that happened, which caused all the problems. If you look at a population chart of the different ethnic and religious groups, go back to 1910, and it'll show you there's very few ethnic Jewish people in the territory, versus if you go to 1935, 1940, it swelled tremendously by the emigration from Europe and elsewhere into Palestine, which was part of the movement to establish this state, was to bring a lot of people in and sort of overwhelm the local population with some money to grease the skids with the British through the Rothschild family, and then they cut a deal to get this done that was then supported by the UN and the Americans.
Thank you very much,
Did that
Chip.
answer your question, or did I not cover all the
They also
different?
didn't want the Jews in Europe.
Yeah, that's another issue too, which, again, if you don't know the history of this, yes, there's been anti-Semitism in many times throughout history, which I think is abhorrent. I think that's horrible. And I've heard different justifications for why different groups did not want to have Jewish people in their territory, in their region, in their nation state, whatever the case may have been. I don't know whether they're legitimate or not. Okay, I don't even really want to know. I just don't think it's right to pool everybody into one group and hate a group just because of who they are and where they come from. I think that's bad. But there were people that were emigrating from Europe that were trying to go into the United States. This is a bad part of our history. And the people in the United States did not want these Jewish immigrants. So they turned the ships around, literally. And there's video of people coming from the United States, the territorial waters of the U.S. where they were rejected, and they traveled all the way back across the Atlantic and ended up in Palestine, and they were absorbed into the community. Not always welcomed, warmly, but there was a stasis between. There wasn't major conflict going on for decades, and then. Of course, the establishment of the state it was a very unfair establishment of the state. Let's face it. And these Arab nations looking from the outside in thought that, as they should. I mean, if like I said, if the dynamics were changed, you'd be just as angry if it was happening to you. But there was a conflict, and the Israeli military prevailed, which allowed them to stay established. There's been subsequent conflicts since then, and they've prevailed. Now, some of them are dubious as far as how they got started, and that's why there's UN 242 that doesn't legitimize the acquisition of the territory in the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and the Sinai, which has since been returned through a peace deal. But be that as it may, there are people who, from historic reasons, like you said, see the whole territory as theirs from the get-go. In fact, more. They see everything from Cairo, Egypt, as far as north through Lebanon, all the way to the east through Syria, and all the way down through half of Saudi Arabia, all of Iraq, all of Kuwait, and all of the Red Sea. They see that as the greater Israel that they were given by God, and they're going to keep going until they can get it, no matter what's required. That's what their God tells them to do.
Yes, I would like to thank you very much and thank each and every single person who protested in US, in UK, and in the whole continent of Europe. What you guys are doing is amazing. We can't do this in most of our Arab states because we're not allowed to.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for conveying the message. Please keep doing this. Please continue what you're doing because it's amazing. And thank you very much, Chip, for what you're doing. I love you.
Very kind of you. Yeah, right back at you. I appreciate the support. Yeah, I mean, think of it this way. Whatever the issue may be. I mean, I speak out about the Ukraine-Russia war in a way that most people don't like. I mean, vehemently disagree with me. But I don't do it because I want to take a side. I do it because I take it through the same process that I take everything else through. The reason why I come out where I come on this issue is because of the process. And so it's not about picking or choosing which side you like more than the other. It's not about what benefits you the most in terms of what, it's not political. It's just being an arbiter, being an analyst and, trying to be fair. I mean, listen, you got to be willing to understand you're going to be wrong about stuff. But anyway, so I appreciate the support. And when I say I'm not pro-Palestinian, I don't mean that I don't like Palestinian people. I'm saying that the issue falls in such a way that the oppressed in this situation happens to be Palestinians. But if it were Jewish people that were being oppressed by a Palestinian government, I would levy the same criticism. I would be pro-Jewish, just to be clear. It's not about the players, it's about the behavior. Okay, we have a guest named Kevin. How you doing, Kevin? Did I unmute you?
Hello,
Okay.
Chip. Thanks for having me. I'm Kevin. I'm in Virginia. I'm 65. I'm a painter.
Hi, Kevin.
I'm never educated, but I wanted to make a short statement. Firstly, to applaud you for your sacrifice for trying to get the truth out. My first memory of world issues was JFK's funeral on television. I was about 5 years old, I guess. And it went on to seeing Israel and Palestine on the news nightly for decades, like it would never end. And it just seemed like a fact of life. And then there was Vietnam coinciding there. And then there was the Ireland thing, which just seemed like nightly on the news for decades, it seemed.
Yeah.
And before this awakening that I feel like the world is having now, we in America trusted our government to make correct decisions. Now we've identified what a war machine is. And I just wanted to tell the people, innocent people who live over there in the Middle East, we feel for you. And that my prayers is that the murder stops. And I'll pass because I'm outspoken here, but I appreciate you having me.
Kevin, that's very kind of you to contact us. And by the way, just because you don't have quote unquote all the book smarts in the world doesn't mean you can't articulate how you feel about something, and that's what's most important anyway, is what impact it's having on your emotional state and or your life and the people you see out there. So, people that are self-demeaning, I appreciate your being humble, but book smart weirdos like me don't have the informational market cornered, believe me, especially emotionally. So thanks for coming on, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, I've heard people that don't want to come on live or don't want to make more videos because they don't feel like they're as knowledgeable or whatever. I think that's unfortunate. I was trying to let Kevin go, but it's not letting me. Kevin, if you can drop off, I'm trying to bring you down, but it's not letting me for some reason. So thank you for being here. Okay, we have Stephen that's going to be on next. Just to reiterate one more thing about, knowledge. I think once you learn something, as long as it's not going to affect your immediate safety, like the people that live in some of the nations where there's more repressive governments, you kind of have an obligation to speak out, I believe, and especially if other people are trying to suppress the truth, like has been done in the Western corporate media for decades. Yes, there's been news stories, as Kevin mentioned, but they've been very one-sided, where they omit a lot of historical context, or they omit or paint the other people in more negative terms than is reasonable, right? That's probably something that's undeniable. Okay, we have Stephen that's coming up next.
Yeah, good evening. I'm from the United States, and really started looking at this obviously since the 7th. Kind of brought it to the awareness, and I come from a perspective of just a regular person in the U.S. Perspective was shaped by mainstream media, as well as some very basic religious training, but not anything extreme by any means. A very simple perspective of what is Zionism? Well, right to have a Jewish state. It turns out to be something completely different. But I was actually raging, seeing red, in the very early points, and came to on TikTok to kind of broaden my perspective. So when I would have these discussions about, really anger about the 7th, and people would say, well, what happened before the 7th? And, it's a symptom, it's not the disease. And I allowed myself to listen to folks. And I then went to the point of specifically reaching out to people that I was attracted to. Then generally ended up to be academics and the like, but moderate people who seemed, to be speaking clearly, on some level. And then I would follow up, those discussions with research as well. So yeah, I definitely would say it took about 6 weeks, but really made and I'll say a complete 170 where I still sit. So obviously, some of the points you made about the lives where there's just yelling and screaming, that always bothered me as well. When, people weren't being effective in what they were speaking about, when people were allowing them emotions to distract them from, with silly arguments. Hey, you were never here. You've never been a country. Well, yes, but there were people there and had some level of a national identity that, formed over subsequent decades. And then I started to see that there was absolutely an agenda going on here. And then you start to pick up where little bits and pieces came in, where first it was, well, on the 7th there were 8 hours and the Israelis were warned, and and all this, and I have American SEAL team folks say, wait a minute, it takes them 5 minutes to get an Apache over, so what's going on here? And I have been dissuaded from thinking too much about conspiracy theories, although I do still, because what have and anyway, as I went through all of this, when I say 170%, really, it became very evident of a G side. It became very evident of the geopolitics that were driving this. Lots of arguments. This is not religious. This is political, and on and on and on, and just weaponization of all that. What I'm seeing now, we are still having these discussions, and I'll get to my point. I don't want to monologue with you. I'm sorry, but when I say I'm 170, my biggest thing is still my jury in my head, and my perspective is still out on the H group. And one of the things that's gone on the last couple of weeks is, based in truth, where, yes, at the very beginning, lots of false information. No, there were never 40 babies. We get that. Yes, that there was, yes, that the Apache came in, he couldn't tell who was who and was ordered just take them all out. So all of a sudden those things go away. And then even in the very beginning, when I was angry, it was really more about the civilian attacks and the brutality of them. And, and I always said, hey, look, if you're going to, come out and attack, hit the military targets, if that's, your issue. Turns out they hit a lot of military targets, and a lot of those people were those folks as well. So the numbers drop and drop. And I'll tell you one other thing, it even through my research, and when I heard, all of a sudden you hear that in the 40s, 50s, 60s, those atrocities that actually happened on the 7th, if, were things that the Israeli side had done, and that it was almost a political statement in itself. But now there's even disagreement there, to the extent that some folks are saying it was never 7-8 hours, it was 2 hours in and out, and I did come to a thought, well, gee, is the Israeli government was warned about this by Egypt and the United States. Something was up and nothing happened, and they allowed it to happen. Justification to continue everything through. But now they're coming back saying, and this is from the Palestinian side, and very intelligent, high, people who understand communication technology and all this thing. Nope, they were able to blind the wall, get through, and in and but I guess that's my question. Is there any clarity, and regardless of the numbers, but there's almost an argument that even the civilian atrocities never really happened,
Yeah, it's a fair question. I talk about this often. I don't know if we'll ever know the full story. I think we're clear on the fact that the magnitude of what I call the atrocity propaganda is far overstated, obviously, and it's there for a reason. And the 40 babies is indicative of that because it led the entire obfuscation we've seen since. There have been some reports that some of the film that they've shown to a select number of people have shown some of the things that may have taken place. I don't know. I've not seen them myself. I have seen video myself that show a handful of things happening in real time, which obviously you can't dispute that. And it does appear, if you were going to get completely on the, coming from the outside, the Alex Jones angle of this, so to speak, one could maybe make the argument that, yes, it may have been allowed to happen. It might even been foreknowledge, and there was maybe an ulterior motive behind it that served multiple interests. And just say, for example, that somebody had the goal of having a reason to go in and try to marginalize the people and move the population south in Gaza and establish a permanent military establishment and reoccupy for controlling whatever they want to. Pretty darn good justification, right? Whether it happened by accident or not, it gave them the cover to do what they're doing, and then as horrible as it's been. I would argue, again, from the outside in, I hate to say these things because I'd rather not. I'm not in anybody's heart or mind, so I can't say this with certainty, but it sure does appear that there's a hardline group of people that have a certain agenda, and they're doing whatever they can, no matter what the cost, to pursue it. Regardless of who gets hurt, what happens, they have their goals, they're going to pursue them. Everyone else can go to hell. And I think that's what we're seeing play out in real time, and it's horrific to the people that have to be on the receiving end. And by the way, before I get into any more detail, I just want to congratulate you. And I'm just amazed because so few people go through the change that you just described from how you originally felt, but the openness that you had to learning more. And then, of course, you shift your point of view accordingly. I just want to say hats off. Good for you for doing that. The other question I wanted to ask you was, if somebody who you heard saying things that were similar to how you felt on the 7th, how would you address that to share the journey that you've been on to come to a different set of conclusions with them?
Well, I do come on lives occasionally. I try to be effective, and that's really my biggest thing. Is that if we're going to have communications and discuss, speaking. Even at the very beginning, within the first couple of days, I would say things when people were saying, "Oh, this happened, that happened." Well, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a bit. Let me kind of focus here. I think that the biggest challenge to folks being able to go through this journey is that we have, through all of our indoctrinations, we have strong standing beliefs. And when those beliefs get challenged with contradictions and things that actually form our identity, it's very hard on a personal level to be able to challenge those internally. And that's really, I think, where we get stopped, being blinded, but what we believe are absolute truths. But, even, during the, I think I'm starting an awareness of that I can't trust mainstream media, and kind of saw that during the Trump years here in the States, where, wait a minute, you go to this station to that station, and sometimes they're saying the same thing, but more likely they're just saying, it became obvious that there wasn't that. So, by going to these alternative sources and then utilizing what we can, it helped me move through it. So I will talk to folks about that. I will say, hey, let's stop. I challenge people to stop arguing about things like who was here first, whose DNA, XYZ, and actually a person who really helped me form this opinion. I think Dr. Liam O'Mara. And, I was attracted to him as well because he definitely has a perspective, but he's not out there similar to yourself, pushing an agenda, but he's just saying, hey, look, here's historical, here's things that we documents from the Knesset, this is, so it helped kind of justify those things. Like a resource. He's read tens of thousands of books and can regurgitate them, and I don't have to read tens of thousands of books, and he'll tell me which books which books to read. So that was quite helpful. And then I did pick up things, and it took work because, and luckily, for whatever reason, I had the time at that point of history to really spend the time here. But I saw one video really turn my head, and I could share it with you. It's been taken down. I found it again. It's been taken down again. Luckily, I shared it, so it's somewhere, and maybe you've seen it. There's a gentleman who came on, and his father was a general with the IDF in 1967, one of the planners of it. And, they, took, after the war was over, he sat with the council and, Sharon and all these people that, made up decades of leadership. And he said, look, we did what we set out to do, but we've got to solve this problem. It's not going to go away. Let's, set up a two-state solution. Let's this, let's that. And while he was having that conversation with these folks, the bulldozers were already taking out settlements in East Jerusalem. They told him that, they told, and basically Sharon and these guys said, stop talking about this. We're never giving anything back, XYZ, our agenda moves forward. And, this is an Israeli person, who has no reason to have share this type of history. Right. And that really crystal cleared it for me, where I really could do a bit of a paradigm shift, that what I thought I was seeing, I was actually seeing. And that goes to from the very beginning. And one of the things that Dr. Leem shared as well was that we talk about 1948, and I heard you talk about 1947. Well, that's when the fact that the ability of the Nakba to be so successful, it had been planned for decades. And that was, it was a military operation and as brutal as anything. And the only reason it could happen is because there was a clear set agenda that hasn't stopped. And now and I think another thing that drove me to it was self-interest. Because
just real quick, Stephen, I'm not trying to cut you off. I just want to share with
you need to, because I'll keep talking.
No, it's okay. There are some guests that are waiting. By the way, I just followed you back. Please message me because I want to have a longer form conversation with you and some other people. So if you don't mind, I'd love to do that at your convenience. Yeah. But I wanted to just let the audience know, the person to whom Stephen's referring is a son of an Israeli general by the name of Miko, M-I-K-O, Peled, P-E-L-E-D. And he's a very prolific author and speaker who has been speaking out about this issue for a long time. And I think he's great. He points out all the hypocrisies, all the same stuff we point out. And he's a very courageous guy because think about it. He's the son of an IDF general. And how bad does it look if you're someone in your family stands up against the entire party line and speaks out against it, right? That's a very courageous thing to do. I'm sure he's caught in a lot of flack, but he's a very, strong-minded guy, and he believes what he believes, and he speaks out. So, tip of the cap. Just like with you, Stephen, I feel the same way towards you. Congratulations on breaking free from the programming that you might have been given, and for having an open mind. Those are great qualities.
Well, anyway, I will step down and let you get on with your evening, let other folks get up, and thank you for letting me go a little bit here. But all right, listen, have a great evening, and thanks for the help.
Yeah, I'll see you around. Probably I'll be on Liam's live with you sometime soon. We have another person in the audience. I love Liam. If you don't know who Liam O'Mara is, he and I did a co-hosted live a while back, but I was listening one night. I was doing some cleaning up my place, and I happened to have a live on. I was like, I wasn't watching I didn't know who it was, but the way they were speaking, I'm like, damn, this person's articulate and they're really super knowledgeable. I'm like, who is that guy? And of course it was Liam, and that's how I learned about him. And so he's great. If you're not following Liam O'Mara, please do. He just put out a silly video that it said he's got long black hair and a long beard, and he's a professor. So he's very, he's just the smartest guy you can be. And he said, this is what I would look like in 1930. And it showed like this little image coming across, and it showed like the new image of what he would look like if he was back in the 30s, which I thought he looks totally different without facial hair and with short hair. Anyway, side note. Okay, we have, I can't read the name. So Robo-Yanis or something?
Roble.
How you doing?
It means rain. How you doing, sir?
Good.
Appreciate for you to invite me here and give me this chance.
Yeah,
And
of
I
course.
see you for a long time. You were sitting here and you're so strong. The first time that I started following you, when you did, I think, your first one while you were working, you were talking about this, and I was so happy. At least I'm from Ethiopia, first of all, but I live in the United States of America right now. For you guys in America to wake up and break all the propagandas that in this country that you guys hear, the unfair things which is going on around the world, and all of those things by Western countries, and you guys born, raised here, educated here, and breaking out of this, it's a big deal for us. Like for me, you guys are very stronger than us, because we from Africa, we see things in a different way. Back home, I came from the country which is torn by war. We have war since the 13th century to now. So from a person who born, raised, and came from that country, we see the whole world in different eyes. We see things direct as they are. We say, like, if any country goes to invade another country, we just see it's wrong, like politically, or what do you call it, geopolitics, something like that. We don't care about it. If one country goes to another country and invade or wage a war on it, we just want to see how it started, and if the other person started. It's like fighting, when you were a kid or teenage in school, when bullies disturbing you a lot, and you bullied for a long time, then you learn how to fight back, or a martial art or something like that, boxing, and you hit him back. That's exactly the way we see it. Okay. Because war in Africa is like very simple thing, like it's not sophisticated, or it's not reasonable enough like the Western countries, because of some resources, because of certain ethnicity or white supremacy. We don't have those things. It's either ethnicity or a war in between the countries because of certain silly problems. So I really admire you guys, the Western country people, whenever you guys change and even sometimes speak against your own country while you're living in it. I know the consequences is a lot for you guys. I feel that. For a job wise, if you are in school, if especially for this conflict, this kind of conflict, because the country, the whole country, and politicians, most of the politicians, not the people, but the politicians follow that way. If you are against it, you can be kicked out of your job and something like that. I understand. For you guys to challenge all of those things and pass through, then become the right people who fights for the right cause. You don't care whether you are white or you don't care whether those people are the same religion with you. To see that and break out of that and see things as everybody in the world see it, I really admire you guys, and I really appreciate that. The second thing is, I was a little kid when the Gulf War started, American and Iraqi. So I started reading things, and I figured it out that even Saddam Hussein educated here in America. Then I knew, okay, it's their own. Then the Al Qaeda thing came, and I know that I read Osama bin Laden was like, the family was here even the time that happened. So whenever I see all of those things and we see all of those things, it's like things of interest. And even whenever we see in Africa, Western countries put their hand in it, they must have to have one kind of interest from that country that they are helping. If they don't have anything, even if a genocide happens, they don't care. Like, for example, whatever happened in Rwanda and Burundi. But I'm talking, okay? Yeah, go to mommy. Go, yeah. So the whole day, their mom was at work, so they were with me. Now they have to. Then it is like that, and the first time in Ethiopia, because of the religious way, we have Jewish people, Christian people, and Muslim people in there.
If you can, I don't mean to do this. If you can kind of conclude, because there's a lot of background noise. It's tough for some people to hear all that stuff.
Let me go to some room.
That's okay. What I want to is there are other people that want to wait too. We've gone about over 5 minutes. I want to give them a chance to come on too.
Oh, okay.
So thank you very much for sharing your point of view. I really appreciate it. I don't hear from many people from Ethiopia. So yeah, if you don't know the situation in Ethiopia, it's fascinating. They have some fragmentation going on in their country as well. That's of course the U.S. is always taking what I consider the wrong side. They're backing, some rebels that are saying, quote, they're the freedom, but they're not. They're the bad guys, quote unquote. But anyway, neither here nor there. But that whole Horn of Africa right there, that where Somalia, which is directly on the border right across from Yemen, and then you have Eritrea to the south, and you have Somalia to the north. It's a very tumultuous place right now. Very, very key resource in terms of the Gulf shipping, the Red Sea. Okay, we have some people in the bullpen. Courtsize, by the way, Courtsize is someone who sent me so many videos. I've never had a chance to speak with them. So how you doing?
Hi, brother. Nice to meet you, and thank you for doing all this live show. I am fine and work hard. I always follow you, and many times you go shadow banned, but I'm still on Telegram with you. You're doing an awesome job, and my background. I'm in States, but I'm from the part of Gilgit-Baltistan and Kashmir.
Yeah.
Instead of doing a lecture, I would rather ask you a question, sir. My question is this. Now people are coming with some peace lives. Everybody wants to show that, there's we have to start something, talks like peace. But still, when you go into the panel, the conversation, everything is mainly, when you look into the conversation, it's still, they're sided by the Zionism, and their talks, everything is just the same agenda. Just changing the name Peace Talk does not make any changes. You're doing a great job, Chief Burns, and thank you for highlighting. Thank you for educating the mass in America. And we all are, restricted, or we are somehow. I don't know how to tell. We have to basically break the shuffles. We live in America, but then we do not even have a freedom too. So the main question I wanted to ask you is that why don't we first ask this question then, hey guys, what is the root cause of the Middle East? What is the main reason why there's the conflict? Nobody talks about the root cause. Can we find first what is the root cause? Then we can go back, forth, or we can talk to the present 7 October. No, let's first ask what is the root cause. Let's find out what's the cancer in the Middle East. Why there is no peace in Middle East? Can we find out? This is my first question I will ask you, and the second one I'm going to ask about my region where I belong to, Gilgit-Baltistan and Kashmir, which nobody knows about what we are going through.
Yeah, you've mentioned it multiple times. I remember you saying it. Yeah, it sounds pretty bad that there's no visibility, right? You said no one even knows about it.
Nobody knows, sir. And when I even speak right here in your channel, nobody even knows that. If you want, I can ask that question too. Or should you still want to continue and tell us what is the root cause of all this conflict in the Middle East? Just give me the basic root cause. Let's go to the first cause.
Let's talk about that for a second. By the way, there's some really, really good videos. There's a content creator, I forget the name right now, but it'll come to me, who did an excellent video about this very subject. So I'll try to summarize it as best I can. And I'm not an expert, so if I get a couple details wrong, please somebody correct me. But there was first of all, remember that there's always been sort of competing interests of people in general in life. Everyone's looking out for their clan. So everybody acts on their interests, right? So the Western powers are the ones that are the colonizers. The colonial powers basically have come into places like Africa and the Middle East and tried to carve up stuff and use it to their benefit and subjugate others. We saw the British in India. We've seen the British in the Middle East. They're just always meddling and mingling and trying to take and mess with people. So there was an agreement among certain colonizers called the Sykes-Picot Agreement. So you can look that up on YouTube. And it was a delineation of these various territories into these arbitrary boundaries, what we look at as modern day states like Iran and Iraq. There was a territory called the Syrian territory, which is then have formal borders. But Iraq and Kuwait, these nation states, they were just the kingdom of Saud. There's just the issue of Saudi Arabia. You have the Iranians that don't like the Saudi Arabians. You have the Iraqis that wanted to form a pan-Arab. There's all sorts of competing interests that come to bear. And the problem is that the nation states and the boundaries that have been drawn don't reflect homogeneity among religious belief or ethnicity. So it was guaranteed based on these arbitrary, Western imperial lines that were drawn. It was guaranteeing strife. Because you have people in one group, it's just like what's happened in Ukraine. If you don't know much about Ukraine, the people in the eastern part of Ukraine that's now occupied by Russia are all ethnically Russian Ukrainian citizens. The people on the west side of Ukraine are more European, more Polish and European, and they have a different set of ideologies and values, completely different, and they don't like each other. Well, imagine doing that in every single country throughout the entire Middle East to create like a hornet's nest of problems. Now, why did they do that? Why would they want to have problems? Well, it's very simple. If you have a bunch of people that are bickering among each other, they're never going to be powerful enough to stand up against the imperialism that the West wants to keep implementing to take resources and control people for cheap labor and controlling commerce, right? It makes sense. It's a power move. So that's the problem. And really, Joe Biden said this when he was talking about the Iraq war back in 2002. He said that what should happen in Iraq is it should be partitioned into 3 states. I agree with that. I mean, that's not a dumb idea because there's the Kurds in the north. You got different segments and different factions. They're just different peoples, right? So to delineate these nation state boundaries that don't take those things into account is ludicrous, right? But that's what happened.
Sir, I think the main reason for the root cause in Middle East is Israel itself is basically the cancer in Middle East. If you agree or don't agree with me, the all root cause for the entire conflict, and there will never be peace as long as there's Jewish state they do not accept, and they want to make Palestinians their slaves, or either they leave the Palestinian state. That's the first cause, sir. So there's no mutual understanding on both sides. So it's back and forth, fight. There will never be peace. So this is the cancer which is basically in the Middle East that's not letting peace to go further. I'm going to continue the second question, sir. I don't know. I gave you a homework, but you did not do your homework.
No, I didn't. You're right about that.
I will still be asking the question, but I think this will be again a continuing process for my question to you. And thank you for highlighting the oppressed people of the entire world, that what we are going through. My second question for my region. So I'm going to ask that: how can the international community, including former colonial powers, support the people of Gilgit-Baltistan and Kashmir in their pursuit of justice, human rights, and self-determination?
Well, again, I don't know enough about the region and the different variables. I'm assuming there's oppression by, I'm guessing, the Pakistani government. Is that the force? And this is a region, by the way, that borders India and Pakistan. That's the general territory geographically. But I don't know the specific enclave that you're referring to. So is it the Pakistani government that's oppressive?
Sir, we have been oppressed, and every country wants to claim the land. India wants the land. Pakistan wants the land, and Pakistan runs that entire region. But in the United Nations, we are a person where we people are considered to be a disputed territory. So Gilgit-Baltistan is on the left side of Kashmir, and it's run directly by Islamabad as a colony. Till today, we do not have a constitution. We do not have a Supreme Court. We do not have a Prime Minister. We do not even have a Chief Justice. So we are only waiting for this resolution in the United Nations to be solved since 1948, just the way Palestine issue is the cause. So we are oppressed region. We are run as a colony. So I wanted you to check this. If you could please again check on this question: how can the international community, including former colonial powers, support the power of Gilgit-Baltistan and Kashmir in their pursuit of justice, human rights, and self-determination?
Now, that's a very good question. I'll promise you a little more work on that. Do me a favor, send me one more comment and spell it for me, because obviously that's a tougher thing for most Americans, and myself included, to hear. But I do have one question for you that's a fair question. I do not mean this in a disrespectful way. Okay, that's first of all. Here's my question. Based on the interests of other governments and people, why should they care about the region you're referring to? Other than moral reasons to do the right thing, what interest would they have in helping that situation you're referring to?
Sir, we are also human beings. So since 75 years, if we do not have a medical college, we want to have a medical college, right? And we want to have jobs, we want to have trade, we want to have our own factories where people can have jobs. So just to have a treatment, we have to travel from the far end of the corner of Pakistan to the South City, and just being a farmer where you cannot even afford it, and we are supposed to drive only like 15 miles or 20 miles to go to a main hospital, we have to travel and suffer the entire way, which is 2,000 to 2,500 kilometers to come to a main hospital just to get the appendix surgery. So without a medical college, we do not have a civic right, we do not have a voice, we do not even have a senator, and we do not have an assembly. We are run as a colony. We are left with Kashmir cause. So tomorrow, one day, Kashmir will get free. And there is no way Kashmir is going to get a free. So why do we, the common people, have to suffer for this cause? Why can't United Nations, after receiving this 70 times resolution in UN, can still not consider or pay attention to our problems and issues as a human being? We are 27,000 square kilometers on the side of Kashmir, and our borders attached with China, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Russia. And whereas all these countries want to take the lanes, but nobody wants to pay attention to the human beings who are suffering everything in that region.
Yeah, well, listen, I hate to say this. This is the reality, though. I understand in principle exactly what you're saying, but the bottom line is every nation state or every group acts out of their interests. And so if their interests are not aligned with the interests of the group that you're referring to, this marginalized group of people who are a colony or colonized or that are subjugated to mistreatment or lack of good consideration by others, there's a reason for it. If there was some resource in the region that people wanted, there'd be involvement. But if it's just an area that where people live, but they're not formally integrated in any particular governing structure, don't have the development of infrastructure like you're referring to, and there's no reason that benefits another group, other than the moral aspect of it. And you mentioned that you're human beings. I'm not denying your humanity, but that's what would motivate somebody to get more involved and do so. You're saying why. I'm mentioning that's the why. That's people always have a reason. It doesn't seem right now, other than doing the right thing, which is something that human beings can do but don't often. That's why nothing has happened so far. That would be my guess, but I could be wrong. Let me research it. I think a lot of people here don't even understand the territory or the historical thing. You're certainly valid to bring it up, but in terms of more focus on it at this moment, I think that I need to do my homework first, and we can talk more about it. Okay?
So we got independence for 16 days after 1947. And just because being a Muslim majority, there was one small employee who came from Pakistan to that region. And then we decided to be part of Pakistan just because in a Muslim majority. And Pakistan said, we will accept you. And until today, we are not even part of the province. We are just a lollipop. We do not have, we are dependent in Pakistan for the wheat, and we do not get anything, but we have all the rich minerals. We got rare earth minerals. We have the glaciers. We have the water. We have the world's 200 highest mountains, which are above 7,000. We have 4 of the peaks, which is above 8,000. And that area, the second highest mountain, the world, K2, which is the location on Karakoram. So my area is Karakoram, Hindu Kush, Himalaya, Pamir. They meet together. We have one highway which passes all the way to China. And even on China side, they took our land. So that flat land is taken by China. So every side, India.
I'm very sorry. I don't want to mute you. We're going into tremendous levels of detail on a region that most people haven't heard of, and there's obviously a huge attention right now on the plight of Palestinians, which is the primary focus of most of these interchanges. So, as much as I'm curious to hear about it, I don't know if the audience is really super curious to hear these minute details. I'm happy to keep it on, but we do have a lot of people that are waiting, and these details aren't as germane to the overall struggle. Let me look into it. And then I promise you we'll readdress it once I'm a little more educated as to the dynamics. Because right now I can't really give you a good answer other than the ones I've shared with you. Okay, I have to end it there for right now. I appreciate all the videos you send me and for your continued support. We'll revisit it, and please send me a message with the particulars of the name again, because I can't pronounce it as well as you. I can probably find it on a map, but anyway, I apologize if that was shortcut. It's getting late. It's already 12:30 a.m. This is my 9th hour of doing lives today, so I got to keep things moving. Sorry about that. Next person is Freedom Philistine, earlier here.
Hey, Chip, how are you? When you were talking to, I believe it was Stephen. I think it was Stephen Shulman. Anyways, I was trying to, he was talking about he was becoming a little bit of a conspiracy theorist or something of that nature. I just found a video that I seen 4 months ago. I seen it 2 days after the 7th, and I was telling somebody about it. I just refound that video on one of Al Jazeera's YouTubes, and it's got like 7 million views. And what it shows is Israeli troops turning over benches and ripping up things and running around yelling Allah, Allah. And this is at the military base outside of the Kibbutzim Bari. So, when Netanyahu referred to Biden saying this is our 9/11, I kind of pretty much summarized it that they knew exactly what was going on. They knew it happened. They let it happen. They might be in cahoots with the hierarchy of the T group. They might be in cahoots together. And as I said, all governments pretty much work together for their own personal gain. So and that being Israel funded the upstart of Hamas to keep the Palestinians from being united.
Yep.
It all kind of comes together, and this is coming, from a Palestinian. I see this. I see that, it's kind of like a inside job, pretty much.
That's certainly a plausible explanation.
Yeah, well, I got the video on my smart tube. I don't know if my camera would come on. I can play it on my TV and show it to everybody. But
Can you explain what does the video entail? Sometimes we got to be careful with the guidelines
okay,
here.
it entails just a bunch of IDF soldiers. One of them wearing a mask and a black T-shirt, and the other one's running around with their regular weapons and regular uniforms. They're turning over picnic benches. They're busting things up. They're rolling over barrels and yelling "Allah, Allah."
Where was this? Was this inside of Gaza, I assume?
This is inside that military base that the T group attacked.
Okay.
So that's, and like I said, this came out 4 months ago. I seen it 2 days after the 7th of October, and I just refound it again. I've been looking for it. It appeared on TikTok at one point, but I didn't know how to save it from TikTok to my phone. Otherwise, I would have done that. I know I've sent it out to people in Messenger and stuff like that on Facebook.
So, are you saying that it's the Israeli Defense Forces that are doing these acts, or is it
Correct.
somebody else?
Correct.
So, just to let you know, I think, and I don't want to take any chances. I think if we play something that's from another site like YouTube,
Right.
it's gonna flag that it's gonna take down the live. So I just don't want to risk doing that. But
Yeah, no, I
you
don't
described pretty
blame you.
much what we needed to see, I guess, right?
Yes, that's
What's the
that's
name
pretty
of the
much it.
video?
It's from Al Jazeera, and it's in Arabic, and I don't read Arabic. Um, Let me see. It's written in Arabic. I don't know if you can hear it in the background.
Yeah, I hear the yelling and shouting. It's faint
Yeah,
though.
and these are
Okay.
IDF soldiers, and they're turning things over upside down, breaking things.
Just give us the
Uh,
URL.
Please
Let me
wait.
see.
Please wait your turn there, Mimo. I'll get you in, I promise. But
Let me go back. It's not showing the URL because I'm on my smart TV. I brought it up on that.
yeah, I got you. So, in other words, is the point that they are doing things that are mimicking the H group, but they're really IDF people doing it? Is that the point?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. There's a lot of stage stuff that goes on with the Israeli machine. And we saw it at the bottom of the Al Shifa hospital. We've seen it in other situations where they talk about ammo dumps and schools where they show it's all staged propaganda garbage. It's meant to make the Palestinians look bad. The H group look like they're doing all the things about human shield and schools and hospitals. Not that it's never happened, but it's nowhere near as frequently as alleged.
No, actually, the human shield thing, that was actually IDF soldiers, tying up kids, putting them on the front of the Jeep as they
Yeah.
went in the West Bank.
Yeah, that was
You know,
disgusting.
that's
I saw that.
every accusation is a confession by the IDF.
That makes total sense.
Whatever they accuse is actually a confession.
It makes sense. All right, thanks for coming up. We're kind of running late. I got to let some other folks get
Thank
in.
you.
Thanks
Yeah,
again,
go
Paul.
ahead, Chip.
As always, thanks for
Keep
letting us
up
know
the good
about
work,
that video.
buddy.
Appreciate it very much. Okay, we have 3 more guests. We have Ray Jasa, Calvin, and Mimo.
Yeah.
Thanks for being patient. I know you wanted to get more into that. So, yes, sir. How you doing? Or yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you very much, Chip. I'm Sunny. I live in the United States, and I'm a Bosnian refugee who survived genocide.
Oh,
Three and
wow.
a half years living in Europe, and I lived in Sarajevo. We were surrounded 3.5 years, so I've seen a lot. I know what genocide is, and
Right.
this situation in Palestine completely reminded me of what I went through and my family. So, America is an empire, and today America reminds me of the story that empire has no clothes. And I'm sure you're familiar with that story that we all recently learned, me personally, 3 months ago, who's controlling the United States, who's controlling government, who's controlling Congress.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad that there's no representation of people in the United States.
Right.
And so, what is your opinion, Ak? Where are we heading? Because we know that all empires crumble at one point. They reach their peak and they crumble.
Yeah.
Are we on precipice of a third world war? I don't see solution for us as regular people, because what we offer a two-party system, basically corporate oligarchy that's running a country. What I see right now, to me, Republican Democrats is pretty much the same. They're all in the pocket of Zionists. And yes, they do have a different agenda, but bottom line is they just represent different interests, not interest of their constituents. So is there emergence of third party? Is there anything that can lead us toward democracy rather than, still being oligarchy that we are? So
I mean, that is a fantastic question. That literally is the $10 billion question of the day. So I talk about this an awful lot. I wish this wasn't the case. I wish I didn't come to this conclusion, because I don't want to come to this conclusion. But this is where the situation has driven me. And that is this. The two-party system is now completely co-opted by various power factors. It's not just groups like AIPAC, although they have a lot of influence clearly for what's happening here. There's also a lot of people in business and powerful positions who, let's face it, they are pro-Israel, pro-Zionist people. Most of them happen to be Jewish. I'm not going to make conspiracies. It's just the reality that there is a large presence of a very small minority of the world population, an even very much smaller percentage of that group has a lot of power and a lot of influence. That's factual. Doesn't mean I have any problem with it. It just is what it is. But many people have made allegations saying that that means there's some sort of master plan to take over. I don't know about that. But what I would say is this. In terms of breaking those power structures, you have the national security state, which is the permanent war machine. You have the media complex. You have the special interest groups, which could be industry driven or could be, foreign interests like we're seeing with AIPAC. And then you have the wealthy donor class, the ultra wealthy. And all the money flows from corporations and the wealthy donor class into these super PACs, these dark money pools that can then be used to run the advertisements and other campaign expenses, but they're not supposed to collude. You're not supposed to talk to each other, which of course they do. So I don't see that changing. Now, talk about third party. The third party route, unfortunately, is completely squashed by the two parties. They make sure that nobody who runs third party has a chance. Look at Bobby Kennedy. He's the greatest example. He's somebody who has had the most third party traction in 3 decades in the United States. And he's still maybe going to poll at like 6% in terms of as an independent candidate. He was polling at 20% as a Democratic candidate, but they made it impossible for him to get on the ballot for some stupid rules they can do. So it's all a big game to keep people out who are going to make changes to maintain the status quo. The wealthy people, no matter what we do, are going to maintain the position of power. That structure that's in place, Dr. Shiva calls it the swarm, this like-minded group of wealthy oligarchs / government, permanent apparatus. It's not going to change. It's not going to change voluntarily. It is the keystone issue that affects everything we're seeing, not just in Palestine and Israel, but everywhere else in American and Western, the whole world. Everything we see going on is a product of these power structures. They're going to have to be broken one way or the other. And there's so many, I can use all sorts of different, different analogies I could put out there. But the bottom line is this. There's only a few things that the public has that the powerful don't. Okay, there's sheer numbers. There's the buying power, because let's face it, it's a consumer-based economy. So if there was less consuming going on, less profits flow from that consumption to the people who own the shares and have the value in that stuff. Then you have the labor that people have that goes into the same thing. So it's all about money and power. The only way to flip that script is to do something that disrupts the flow of money and power. That's it. Anything else is going to be ho hum, who cares? We had 400,000 people, 500,000 people, however many, out in DC yesterday. Ho hum, who cares? Doesn't affect anything, right? It was a permitted march. Nothing got interrupted, blah, blah, blah. Now, what if you had 50 million people that traveled to Washington, D.C., or maybe were spread out across New York, Chicago, Washington, L.A., whatever, and they went into every beltway and every highway and every airport and every train station and every blah, 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 fill in the blanks, and everything froze? That's different, right? What if 50 million people said they're not going to go to work until these major reforms are done? What if 50 million people said, I'm not going to buy anything other than absolute essentials. I'm not going to Walmart. I'm not going to shop at any stores. I'm not going to movies. I'm not going, nothing. I'll even cancel my Netflix. If it's not food or water, I ain't buying it. What if those things all happen at the same time, simultaneously, and basically locked up the entire engine of consumption, labor, and physical movement? That's a pretty precarious situation for the few that are in power to deal with, because that gets rid of the leverage they have over the individuals or smaller groups of people that, when the numbers come to bear, would be a block to the establishment. That's the only path that I see eventually. Maybe some of the steps in the direction of that might work. We're seeing examples of it right now in like the LA freeway. There was groups that have gotten out. They blocked the bridges in Manhattan and the Lincoln Tunnel, so commerce couldn't come in. It's going to require something more substantive than protest, calling your elected officials, voting for third-party candidates, all of which would be a lot easier and a lot more effective if they worked, but they don't. So we're stuck with that unfortunate reality. I believe that one single change would change the earth forever, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think it will happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you, because the way I see situation in the United States is it's slowly turning to a third world country when you have such a vast people that are living paycheck to paycheck. Even though they're middle class, they consider themselves middle class, they still are one paycheck away from disaster, or illness away from bankruptcy, because number one reason for bankruptcy is the medical bills. So this is the society that we have, is on the verge of collapse. The middle class is turning into poor class. There's such a huge divide. So how do you control masses? You control them by enslaving them digitally. Basically, they have to work to pay their bills, 1 or 2 or 3 jobs. Most of the kids today, I have children, they're living with me. They cannot afford to live on their own.
Yeah.
This is the America of today. America 20, 30 years ago, when I came, I was able to live out of my income and have entire family and feed my kids and wife, stay home. Today is completely different. So I see Gen Z has some kind of awakening right now, that they're very engaged in what's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't see that everybody's getting together in masses, like you said.
Yeah.
Such a thing, I don't know if that is going to happen. And thank you for giving me a little bit of time on this platform.
Absolutely. No, you brought some great points. Those are really important questions and very important issues facing the future of not only the United States, but because of the pivotal role the U.S. plays in the world economically and militarily, a lot of other things in the world, right? It's fair to point out. So the question comes down to, in any kind of a movement, imagine if you work for a company and you're trying to get better wages, you're trying to get better vacation time, maybe a pension, whatever it may be. You have to get together. You can't do it individually. You can't walk into the boss's office and say, hey, I want X, Y, and Z. They're going to tell you to walk out the door. They're going to fire your ass. But if you and most of your workforce join a union and you pay dues so you can help each other through the strike if necessary, you can then use the power of the collective force to get concessions from the power structure, which in this case is the management and shareholders of the company. Same thing in that bigger scenario that I just talked about. It's no different. It's a little more complicated, a lot harder to organize, let's face it. And again, look at the structures that are in place to try to prevent it. Okay. First of all, there's all the programming about hard work and going to school. All the patterns of behavior we go through from birth are geared towards creating a compliant workforce. It's the way it is, unfortunately. That also believe in American supremacy and American exceptionalism and all that other, and that the path to happiness in life is through the American dream of having a house and a picket fence and 3 kids and a backyard barbecue with a hot dog and going to a baseball game with your kid and all that stuff, which aren't bad things per se, but that's the story we're told about that. And then the false story is that it's very hard to even get to that point. The person just mentioned very aptly so, that a single income no longer stretches anywhere near that level to give you those types of lifestyle achievements. So as people fall farther and further apart from the American dream, they say it's the American dream is dead. People are divided right now by what? By left and right. We have a media system which basically has literally left-wing and right-wing media. It serves an audience, and they basically have an echo chamber. Yeah, you tell them the Democrats are those evil idiots, and the Democrats are like, Trump's the devil, and like all this, and it's all petty BS about, now, some issues it matters, like women's reproductive health. I'm not minimizing those types of issues, but for the really, really big issues that connect all the people together, there's no movement because they're bickering. And when people are bickering, just like with what Netanyahu did, saying we have to fund the H group because it creates a fraction between the otherwise connected, Palestinian people, same thing in America. If you can fragment the desires of the public into two different groups or more, they don't have the same powers if they got together. In a union, in a company we talked about, they don't ask you, are you Trump? Are you Biden? They say, do you want better wages? Yes. Do you want better wages? Yes. Of course you both want better wages. Let's go down the street and let's get it done. Okay, great. We can fight about the other stuff at the water cooler next month when we got our better pay, right? Whatever. Same thing for the American system. We have to get people to stop bickering, stop watching NFL football, Netflix, and all the other diversions, and get together and do something. Now, do I think it's going to happen? It's probably highly unlikely because the system is meant to perpetuate that. Most people don't even know this conversation. In fact, they like to avoid it because it involves a lot of unpleasant thoughts and acknowledgments of things that they'd rather not believe. And I can understand that. And also, there are a lot of risks. You have a family, you have a mortgage, you have a car payment, kids got to go to school, got to have health care. These are legitimate pressures on the breadwinner or breadwinners in the home. Asking somebody to take a chance that may or may not even work to get involved in something they don't even realize, that's a big ask, right? They're going to laugh at you, or at best, they're going to say, I'm too busy with X, Y, and Z. I can't take the risk, right? So you got to overcome all that and get people to give money to a general fund called mutual aid, and then get them to go out and do that stuff in the streets if it gets to that point, and not work and not buy shit. That's a lot to ask of people, right? And that's why I think it's an uphill climb. Now, is it possible? Anything's possible. There could be events that happen that trigger a massive emotional response in the population. We're seeing elements of that now, which is good, but it's not affecting enough people in a critical way, I don't believe, to get anywhere near that type of a level. You have to have scale for these things to work. Doesn't it cause problems to say, let's not go to work on Monday, right? Not bad, but I'd call it's the equivalent of recycling your metal cans to try to solve the ecological problems associated with modern industrial capitalism, right? It's just a little bit, it's like a virtue signal. And protesting, as much as I enjoyed being a part of it, and it's our voice, it's a virtue signal because it doesn't really impact the power structure, right? Let's be fair. So it's a hard thing. Listen, I don't like acknowledging any of this. I wish I had a better story to tell where, sure, just vote for the right person. It's all going to get better. Having said that, we're all political. We all can get involved. We all can make changes. Listen, if you have 99 U.S. senators that are totally bought off and you have one that isn't, that's better than having 99, 100. So to that extent, I support independent candidates. There's someone named Diane Sayre who's running against Kirsten Gillibrand in New York. I saw Diane in D.C. I went and said hi to her, and I've watched a bunch of her stuff on YouTube, and I'd be happy to help her campaign. Now, do I agree with everything Diane wants to be? No, she's part of the LaRouche organization, and there's some things they agree with I don't agree with, but big deal. 95% of what Diane believes, I think, is great because it's against the status quo. So I'd rather help somebody like her because she's better. No one's going to be perfect, right? So, but what are the choices we have now? They're worse and far worse, right? So getting somebody who's just way better is better. So it's not a bad thing to participate in the system, but it's not going to, the same system that got us here, you're not going to fix it going through that system that's been bought out. It's just not going to happen. I wish it was wrong. Okay, so let me see. By the way, if Kevin's in here, Kevin, thanks for still contributing. But somebody said no all caps, so that's part of the chat rules. Okay, we have two more people. We have Calvin coming on, and we have Mimo, and there's one other guest that's trying to come on, but I don't think he's coming through. What do you got, Calvin? What's going on? You there, Calvin? I just unmuted you, I think. Let me see if I can do it again. Let's try it again. Yeah, it says the invite, it's going to say fit. It'll probably take a couple seconds. So listen, there's people that disagree with me. I had a little meeting with some people from here on TikTok that were younger, and I love their energy, and I think they're doing great things, but they disagreed with me about what I just shared with you. They thought that the smaller, more incremental, and The one thing the smaller events do, it's not bad. It builds a participation. It builds a mind. It raises awareness. So it's not bad. It's just not going to be effective. Calvin, I can't get you off mute. Maybe you're just not by your computer or your phone. Let me do this. Let me go to Mimo, who's been very patient. Thanks for being patient, Mimo.
Sure, no problem. I was surprised to discover that a huge amount of the support for Israel is rooted in evangelical Christians in the United States.
Yeah, there's more Zionists
Double cross.
movement in the U.S. than there are in the entire world, including the Jewish population.
Yeah, that this is a double cross, that they actually want to see the fulfillment of misinterpreted scripture where 2/3 of Israel gets decimated and the remaining third convert to Christianity. I couldn't stop laughing at the absurdity of it. And even on Twitter, I mean, the things that I've seen where we actually did experiments in their hate speech filters, and we would say F the Jews, F the Muslims, and only it was specifically hard coded to react on anything that like Jewish or and then we showed it to Elon Musk, and he says, "Oh well, how could that be, right?" And it just floors me that these guys will do mental gymnastics to support or to justify unaliving thousands of children. And I'm surprised at Biden because he's Catholic, right? How can it goes against Catholic doctrine? It just floors me.
Well, remember it this way. I don't know if anybody knows this. The money that is raised primarily from the evangelical community in America, which is huge amounts of money, goes to fund the settlements and the settlers. That's a big part of it. And they go to buy weapons for the settlers. How crazy is that? Imagine giving a donation to your church, John Hagee or the church or whatever, and that money gets funneled to an Israeli settlement where Americans are going there to live and getting weapons provided to them by the donation. So you can't make this stuff up. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's crazy. There's been some Vice News. If you don't know what Vice News is, it's a independent news group. They did a great report on this about a few years back. And there are actually tours. There's a tourism industry in Israel that takes these evangelical Christians over and gives them like a dog and pony show, and then uses that as a way to get money out of them for the same thing I just described. It's absurd, it's disgusting, it's unbelievable, and it's true. And it's sad.
It's just mind-boggling because I said, how can you believe that? And they believe it, and so it's a double cross. They're supporting Israel, but the truth is they hate Muslims more than they hate Jews. And when you add those two together, I mean, everyone who was pro-Israel was anti-Islam, anti-Arab, and it became obvious when you were trying to talk to them. I said, well, how can you justify the unaliving of thousands of these kids? I mean, don't you have any conscience? Doesn't it eat at you to see that flashing in your face on Twitter every day? I mean, don't you have any compassion? And they're like rocks, that they're not moved. Nothing lights up in their brain. They don't, and that's why I don't understand it. You have Biden who's got one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. And the guy's a Roman Catholic. I mean, you're going to get barbecued at 900 degrees in the afterlife if you're supporting.
I got to use that line of one foot in the grave and one on a banana peel. That's special. I really like that one. Let's go on Twitter tonight. In fact, I'm gonna love that one. Anyway, yeah, that's a funny picture. Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, think of this. Think of the belief system. Okay, you believe that in biblical prophecy that in order for the second coming of Jesus Christ to occur, that there needs to be a great battle in the land of Israel, so that the Jewish people can be 2/3 unalived, and therefore the final third can be converted, and there can be the second coming of Christ. I mean, it sounds like a bad cartoon, but that's
right. And then he reigns over earth for 1,000 years, and so they have to meet Jesus up in the air halfway. I mean, so he sort of raptures them up. And I said, wait a minute. I said, I never heard about this in Catholic school. Where'd you get this from? Yeah. And I just could not stop laughing. So, and that's when I found out about, what's his name? John Hagee. Yeah, Hagee. And I started watching his videos. I just couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny.
Yeah, it's really sad. And what people are told to believe, I mean, listen, I don't know about the validity or invalidity of those things, but they seem very extreme and very strange and it's just off the radar, off the reservation for me. Thanks for bringing that up. I really appreciate you being here tonight.
No problem.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
So yeah, so this has been quite a quite a ride today, quite a marathon. We went live from 3 p.m. until a little bit after 8 p.m., which is about 5 hours, and then been on tonight since about 9 o'clock until about another 4 hours. So I'm about my limit of lives for one day, but it's been great being with everybody. I just want to let people know my schedule in case we can pick it up later. So my name's Chip Barnes. For those who don't know who the hell this guy is, I'm Chip Barnes. I'm an Army veteran from the USA. And I've been studying this issue, the Israel-Palestine conflict, since I was 21 years old when I found out about it very accidentally from a college classmate. And I've tried to read up as much as I could over the years and follow the different peace agreements and different things that have flared up and all the other geopolitics around it. And it's just very sad to me what's happened to Palestinians. And I've always felt badly for Palestinian people, and it's only gotten worse and worse over the decades. So I've been an advocate. I've only been on social media for 3 months, but I came on right before this happened. So it was sort of serendipitous in terms of my being able to talk to people about this. Just to let you know, if you want to find me online, I do have other places on social media like Twitter and elsewhere. You can go into my profile, main page where my videos are, and underneath my name, if you're in the USA, there's a clickable link. It says Linktree Chip Barnes. And if you click on that, a big list will come up of social media sites. And then it has some Telegram groups that I've created for different things. You'll see them. And then it has some donation links if you want to help me out with my journey. I'm not. I look like a privileged white guy, but I'm kind of tapped out. I'm getting to the point where I'm gonna have to go get a job if I can't figure out a way to make this work, which would suck because I like doing this, but we'll see. Anyway, so and as far as the recordings of this go, for right now, if you missed any part of this, or if you're curious like how to see other ones that I've done before, we've had some really great conversations, especially earlier today and tonight. They get archived. So I record them, or TikTok records them. I download them and I put them back up on YouTube and on Rumble, usually within a half a day, because I'm going to bed tonight. I'm not doing that. I'm tired. But they'll be up there tomorrow and you can watch them. And I'm also going to be pulling clips out of them that are specific to certain issues. So we cover all sorts of ground, and so there'll be more specific issues if you don't want to watch the whole 4 hours, for example, which is a lot, right? But this is like a podcast on steroids, like that's what I call it. It's like a radio show podcast on steroids, but on TikTok. That's kind of what it is. It's a weird thing. So I just want to let you know I love geopolitics. It's fascinating to me. I know a lot about a lot of different stuff. I'm not an expert at anything, but I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. But I do know the people who are the experts to go for. I've listed a lot of them that I've found across the years in my Twitter, in my pinned message at the top. So if you want to see some of the people who have been able to teach me a lot, go check it out. Have at it. They're good people. A lot of YouTube channels in there. I update it about once a month with new stuff that I find because I'm always finding good people. There's a couple that I really want to add. One is excellent with the geopolitics video. They put me to shame. So I really like good people. Anyway, so my schedule again, Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern time to 10 p.m. Eastern time here on TikTok. Sorry, something got my eye. And then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from 12 noon to 2 p.m. Today was a special thing because I missed Friday and missed Saturday because I went to the pro-Palestinian rally in DC yesterday. So yeah, I did a little summary from my trip to DC yesterday. If you want to see it, it's the most recent video I posted, and it just shows a quick snippet of some of the footage that I took, and it was great. I met some really cool people that I'd never met before in person that pointed me out and said, "Hey Chip, how you doing?" Because you get to see a lot of the names, but you don't get to see their faces. A lot of times people don't have their face on here. So it's always great to meet nice people. I met some super nice people, got to learn more about some things that I didn't know, and it's always helpful when people educate you and share their life's experiences with you. So, again, the most important thing right now is we want to keep talking, and hopefully there's a ceasefire. That's the number one step. That's the first thing. In addition to stopping the nightmare, it's like the purge going on in the West Bank right now. It's insane. So I would say ceasefire in Gaza, stopping of all the craziness that's going on in the West Bank. As it's out of control, trust me. And then working towards some form of long-term peace. That's going to require major concessions on the Israeli side. They've overplayed their hand over the decades. They've made a whole other people subjected to terrible misery and suffering for no fault of their own, except for they just happened to be somewhere where somebody else wanted to conduct their life, their living. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, but that's how I see it. And it's because of the research and time I've invested over the years that I've come to that conclusion, not because I want to take a side. I could really care less. So that's what's going on. If you can't see, this is about as tired as I get while still being to keep my eyes open. So I apologize. I'm just whooped. Still got to take the dog out for a late night walk. So thanks for being here, everybody. I really appreciate you. And by the way, the moderators that were here keeping the chat going, and I forget the last name. I forget the name. I apologize. There was one other moderator that was helping tonight too. So thank you for doing that. It doesn't work without you, so I appreciate that. And I will be on here again. If you have questions or issues you want me to do, you can always message me through here. Even if I'm not following you, I get the message and I can respond to it. And if you have suggestions on topics like one of the callers said earlier, I can do that. But the goal is to get good information out, have good, polite, but spirited debate in a way that's manageable so people can understand it, and we'll keep coming back and hopefully find common ground. That's kind of what I'm all about. So thanks for being here, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's Monday. See you then.